Why? Before you. Echo, how sweet the answer makes. After where's? In the land of lion's odor? Friends, first, if you don't mind, name your historical grounds. This same prehistoric barrow 'tis, the orangery. I see. Very good now. It is in your orangery, I take it. You have your letters. Can you hear me, you, sir? Thousands for my darling to pet. So long aforetime. Can you hear better? Millions for God sends, for my darling, dearling one. Now, to come nearer zone, I would like to raise my deuterous point audibly touching this. There is this maggers. I am told by our interpreter, Hannah Rosellis, that there are fully 606 ragwords in your malherbal magis land gauge, in which walled wand rhymes Altman, and there is resin in all roots for monarch. But ye has not one pronounceable term that blows in all the vallums of Tartalacht to signify majestate, even provisionally, nor Noreda or Torpentine path, or Hallucinian via, nor Aurelian gape, nor sunken rut, nor gross-grown trek, nor crime-slaved Cruxway, and no moorhen's cry or mooner's plank gang there to lead us to Hopenhaven. Is such the unde derivator case matter, messio? Frankly? Magis generator, minas hoc intelligao. How? C'est mal prononçable, Tartagliano, per Francis. Vous n'avez pas d'eau dans votre bouche provinciale, Moussou. Je m'incline, mais moi j'ai trouvé la clé dans les champs. Et Cham n'a pas de velours, come on. Hep there, come on, ça n'a pas de velours. Who's tête dans your jambs? Who's that inclining and talking about the Messiah so clover? A truce to your trifling. Who're you? Trinathan Partnick Dieudonné. Have you seen her? Tipet, my tactile o. Are you in your fabric, lonely one? The same, 3 persons. Have you seen my darling only one? I am so old. What are you shivering about ultramontane like a hound? Is there cold on ye, Dorophobian? Or do you want your primavera school, ma'am? The woods of Fauchloot. Oh, Miss Padriches. Whish the white grey leg. The duck is rising, and you'll wake that stand of plover. I know that place better than anyone. Sure, I used to be always over there on the 4th day at my grandmother's place, Tiernan Ogre, my little grey home in the west, in or about Mayo, when the long dog gave tongue, and they coursing the marches, and they straining at the leash. Tortoise shell for a guinea gold. Burb, burb, burb. Follow me up to Curla. That's the place for the Clare oysters, Paul Doody, County Conway. I never knew how rich I was, like another story, in the zoodon of the Zephyros, strolling and strolling, carrying my dragoman, Mead's marvel, thus with unpronounceable tale along the shore. Do you know my cousin, Mr. Jasper Dougal, that keeps the anchor on the mountain, the parson's son, Jasper of the Tons, Pat, whatever your name is? Dude, and I dude, the wolves of Fauchloot. But why do you call me? Do not flingamajig to the wolves. Turca fiera, and that's a good one right enough. Wolves, no less. One moment now, if I foreshorten the bloss on your bleather. Encroachment spells erosion. Dunlin and Turnstone augur us where, how, and when best as to burial of carcass, fuselage of dump, and committal of nuisance. But since you invocate osters for the trailing of vixens, I would like to send a cormorant around this blue lagoon. Tell me now this. You told my learned friend rather previously, a moment since, about this mound or barrow. Now, I suggest to you that ere there was this plague burrow, as you seem to call it, there was a burial battle, the boat of millions of years, Would you bear me out in that, relatively speaking? With her jack-staff jerking at her penny ladders, why not? And sizing a fair sail, knowest thou the kind? The pourquoi pas bound for vice to us land. That four-master barkentine, Webster says, our ship that ne'er returned. The Frenchman, I say, was an orange boat. He is a boat. You see him, the boat, how you see as they, Draken af Denmark. Sacked it or ate it, what? Henno? Spake ablout. Couch, cortege, ring barrow Duncairn. Beseek the ruins and see the long urn. All maun away when you hear the gang horn. And meet Nortson, S.O.S. Warm night. Conning Thule pays. Norska, her raven flag was out, the slaver. I trow upon good Jordan's scaper, Goods, Barnet, and trusty man. Crouch low, you pigeons three. Say, call that girl with the tan dress on. Call wolfhound, wolf of the sea. Folku, folku. Very good now. That folklore straight from the ass's mouth. I will crusade on with the parent ship, weather profiting, far away from those green hills, a station, Ireton tells me, bona fide for keel tappers, now to come to the midnight middy on this Levantine ponenter. From Daneland sailed the ox-eyed man. Now mark well what I say. Magnus Spadebeard, Corset's crosser, Welsher perfidy, a destroyer in our port, signed to me with his bailing scoop, laid bare his breast paps to give suck, to suckle me. H.C.E. Hagios Chrisman. Oh, Jesus fluid, says the poisoned well. Futfishy the first. Hooch Copper's ankle at the naval manoeuvres. Hip. Hello there, Bill of Old Bailey. Who's he? Who's this lad? Why the pups? Hunkel's child a red Easter held. It's his lost chance, man. You wear him well. Hey, did you dream you're eating your own tripacushla that you tied yourself up that Rhinecky fix? I see now. We move in the beast circles. Grimbarb and Panzercruiser. You took the words out of my mouth. A child's dread for a dragon vice father. Hill, cloud, and compasses. You mean you lived as milky at their lyceum, Couard, while you learned vulp vulp to howl yourself wolf-wise? Dib dib, do your best? I am doubling like old Booth's courteous. The cubs are after me at Zebes. The whole totem pack, vuck vuck and vuck vuck to them for Robinson Shield. Sense and gospels, the animal jangs again. Find the Fingal Harriers. Here, howl me wiseacre's hat till I die of the milkman's lupus. What? Wolfgang? Oh, talk very slow. Hail him, heathen, heal him, holy stone. Courser, recourser, change child. Elders end all earth. A cataleptic mythophalic. Was this tutum fulcrum est ancestor ye held in dies irae, where no spider webbeth or anno mundi ere boards plied in skiff straight? Be fair, Chris. Dream. On a non day I sleep. I dreamt of a some day, of a one day I shall wake. Ah, may he have now of here, fear filled me. Sin flowed, oh, sin flowed. Fia, fia, befurcht Christ. I have your tristic now. It recurs in 3 times the same differently. There is such a fooey story which obtains of him, coming known from the asphalt to the concrete, from the human historic brute Finson, Fenian, Oxyaniclived, to this same vulganized hill, sir, from yours, Mr. Toppling Toon of Morning the Heights, with his lavest flow and his rambling undergroans, would he reoccur ad horam, as old Romeo Rogers in city or county, and you're sure ob or by, with or from an herb, of you know the differentiabus, as Brauchbad in Apabramsa Sierra. We speak of Gun the farther, And in the locative, bap bap. Our tad, herlig bow bow, certain orbits a certain home place of Civitats A, Smithwick, Ronder, Caledon, Salem, Mass, Childers, Argos, and Dufflos. Well, I am advised he might, in a sense, be both, nevertheless. Every at man like myself, suffice it to say, Abrahamsk and Brookbear. By him it was done, Babka, by me it was gone into, to whom it will be believe. Much shame. I am afraid you could not heave a whore one of your own old stepstones, barn, over a stumble-down wall here in Huddlestown to this classic October night, but it and they will binge, much as vicious, off the doss-house back of a race rider in his true-to-flesh colours, either handicapped on her flat or barely repeating himself. This is a tip-tip Tim Oldie facher, now the man I go in fear of, Tommy Terracotta, and he could be all your and my das, the broder of the founder of the father of the finder of the fander of the funder of the first man in Ranelagh, Fwifwe, Petrus and Violet Ice. I am Yam as me and Tam Tower used to jagger Pemerit over at the house of Eddie's Christie, meaning Dodge father, Dodge son and coo, and spirituous sanction. Breathe softly, ores are aureas. How's his noun? Midas has or rails. Piercy. White eye luscious and muddy horse broth. Pig Percy Riley. But where do we get off, Chisler? Halt still, Lucas and Dublin. Vulva. MacDougall, Atlantic City, or his Onagrass, that is, Chowm and Coffin. I would go near identifying you from your Stavrotides, Jong of Maho, and the Weslarius round your Yokoho hat, and that O'Mullencan replucha you have from the worst curst of Ireland, Clwyd of the Mutawig group, is no use to you either, Johnny my Don Quixote. Number 4, fix up your spread eagle and pull your weight. Hush and hum to our regionals hin and the gander of Hayden. Would ye ken a young stepschuler of psychical chirography, the name of Kevin, or let outers pray Evan Vaughan of his post horn in the High Street, that was shoeing a gyny gagag pool pinter, that found the document number 1, I would suggest, an illegible down-thumbed by an uneligible? If I do know, scented sageness, sometimes he would keep silent for a few minutes as if in prayer, and clasp his forehead, and during the time he would be thinking to himself, and he would not mind anybody who would be talking to him or crying stinking fish. But I no way need you, stroke or, nor your quick handles. You're too far a cock of the north there, Matty Armagh, and you're due south, so. South? I see. You're up in Lille, Ulster, and I'm free down and easy, and this is much better. He is cured by faith who is sick of fate. The prouts who will invent a writing there ultimately is the poeta, still more learned, who discovered the raiding there originally. That's the point of eschatology our Book of Kills reaches for now in so-and-so many counterpoint words. What can't be coded can be decoded, if an ear eye sees what no eye e'er grieved for. Now the doctrine obtains. We have occasioning cause, causing effects, and affects occasionally recausing outer effects. Or, I will let me take it upon myself to suggest, to twist the penman's tale, poster-wise. The gist is the gist of Shaum, but the hand is the hand of Samas. Shan Shim Shong. There is a strong suspicion on counterfeit Kevin, and we all remember ye in childhood's reverie. 'Tis the bells of scandal that gave tune to crumble over him and someone between me and thee. He would preach to the 2 turkeys and dip all the Indians, this master the abbey, and give gold tidings to all that are in the bonds age, of anti-pro-resurrectionism to entrust their easterly appearance to Borsiolini's house of hatcraft. He is our scent on the firm. Now, have you reasonable hesitancy in your mind about him after 4 priests read Mass? Or are you in your post? Tell me, and that sans dismay. Leap hard. Fear Apple putting years on me. No, no, this bolt in hand be my warder. I'll see you moved, Father Blarneying Mark Antonio. What can such wretch to say to I, or how have my to doom with him? We were womb full of mischief, and in Isham wise, ever liking aliked, hairy top on heel tipper, A.L.P Becca's unwashables, and Ixon am Ixon, that babe, imprincipially, my leopard brethren, the poor, ends innocence of but 15 primes. Ya all in your calblionized so trilustriously standing the real school, to be upright as his match, healthiest as his egg, saviour so the salt and good wee-browed, paralleling butter, did I automobile him to a flare insiding hog's fat. Been I his kinderguardian? I know not, O Cashla. I am sure oft habitant this undered heaven, mes enfants. Contrasting the first mover, that father I ascended froming knows, as I think, caused whom I, as self the sign, came, remaining being, dwelling ere Plage and Watford, as to I was elted in postulance, possessing my future state, falling towards thrice myself, resting the childhide, when I received the habit, following Mesianius, connecting Mesosius, including was verted, embracing a pilgrim, circumcised my hairs, O Lord, and removed my clothes from patristic motives, meas minimas culpas. Permitting this ickle coon, crouched low, entering humble down, dead through mean scatological past, making so smell, partaking myself to confess, abiding clean, tumble uponing use octopods, mouth speech all no finger force, owning my mansuetude before him, attaching audience, prostrating words mine sore, accompanying mine train drops, offering my eye salt, what I, the person whom in I now am, did not do, how to say essayed, anding how he was making errand, and anding how he all locuti sunt. Why did you, my sixth best friend, blabber always, you would be so delighted to back me, then erst irrident, toppling Humphrey hugging nephew, old Begalout, designing such posts, sitting his night office? Annexing then, producing Saint Momoluius, you snub around, enclosing your moving motion, touching the other catechumens, continuing, say, providing append of signature, quoniam you will celebrand my dearth dags, quoniam conceal the concealer, I am 2 sides uppish, a mock belief insolent, ending none mere hyber Irish. Well, chunk your dimmed chink before after Kinnatown, for as much as many have token in hand to, I may as well humbly correct that Vespian now, in case of temporalities. I've my pockets full complay of you lay-created cardinals, ap prince, ap rola, ap rancer, ap rowdy, improperial. I saved you 4 of the Heckites, and you loosed me hind bland Harry to the burg moat of Aud Dub. I teach it you in fair time, my elders, the WXYZ and PQRS of legatine powers, and you, Alve and Kir Declan, I learn, episcoping me altogether, circumdeditioned me. I brought you from the loops of Lazare, and you have remembered my lapsus languays. Washi wachi wate watashi, oira seshe oire buki jabun, what a cushy lot. Mind of poison is, that time think, honorific remembrance to spit humble makes. My rory deaconal cast is a cut above you, peregrines. I vote you to Romanescu. See the lure of my generations. Has not my master, Theophrastius Spheroneumaticus, written that the spirit is from the upper circle? I'm of the ochlocracy, with Prestopher Palumbus and Porvus Pario. So quo celideri per celideri leposette. Oh, look at my jail brand ex quovis and sequentias high, marked on me, fake similar in the foreign by Papagallus and Pompus Magnus. Ahem, Anglice, egg squafish, lineo non feed mercurius. Sogart can self-laud nil obstant to Loman Catholics' patrician morning coat of arms, with my high tripenny ferry cresta and caudal mottoms, each dean, which Gaspe, Otto, and Zower he renders ecco stesso, addressing eat or not eat body yours am. And mind, praise God, is the first praisonal ego name yod heard boissy in my bog's domes there. Hasta la vista, or in Alaman, succat. Suck it yourself, sugar stick. Misha, you'd think whose was asking to look at your sore toe or to taste your gaspy hot and sour. Ichthian, hegratosser, Gagsby plebs, between his wayus and her consonantes. Tug, Dirk and Hacker, with Rose Lancaster and Blanche York. Are we speeching Dangler's language, or are you spraking see Joyce? Oi, soy, blessy blazy, where to go is knowing remain. Become quantity that discourse bothersome when what do? Knowing remain? Come back, Barry Riley, to bully dames tough. Come him, Buddy Rowley, with me. What about your threepenny croucher of an old fella, me boy, through the ages, tell us, eh? What about Brian's the vaunt and unlie me, master monk, eh? Spira in me domine, spear me doin. Fat prize, the bona fide peach and pigeon lover, eh? Esquire Earwags Escusado of Jenkins area, with his ivy under his tang, and the ho hallow to his dolophone, before there was a sound in the world. How big was his boost, friend, and be shanghaied to him? The swabber, the twicer trifold in Wanstable. Louds curse to him, if you hoard him outerly, as we harm laborantly, from morning rice till night mail, with his drums and bones and hums in drones, your inner-eared, heirdly hear he. Ho, ha, he, he, hung, sing, sing. Me no angry mo, me speaky yarman's lingat. Nicey doc, Mr. Lou, please. Me no piggy ludiments all same number one topside tell me story, fellow. Me piggy savvy a sing-a-song another time. Please ye, Mr. Lukey Walkie. Just Adam Cowbelly, ma'am belong a me, she pull a me all along. Begullah, Jack in a bus belong a she. Plenty much boo-hoo meo. Hell's Confucium and the elements. Two, moo hooch. That's never the postal cleric, checking chin-chin chat with nippon nippers. Halt there, sob story to your lambdad's tale. Are you Roman Catholic 432? Quadrig my yoke, triple my tryst, tandem my sire. History as her is harped, to the tone your old frau lied of, tandris, hat-trick, tryst and parting by vowel glide. I feel your thrill-joy mouths overt speaking, O dragoman, hands under studium, plunger words what paddle verbed, mere man's mime, God has jest. The old order changeth and lasts like the first. Every third man has a chink in his conscience, and every other woman has a jape in her mind. Now, fix on the little fellow in my eye, minutious mandrake, and follow my little psychosinology, poor armor in sling-slang. Now I, the Lord of Puttu, am placing that initial T-square of burial jade upright to your temple a moment. Do you see anything, Templar? I see a black French pastry cook who is carrying on his brain pan a cathedral of love jelly for his... Tiens, how he is like somebody's. Pious, a pious person. What sound of distress is souls my ear? I horizont the same, this serp with ram's head, and lay it lightly to your lip a little. What do you feel, lip-love? I feel a fine lady, floating on a still stream of isis glass, with gold hair to the bed and white arms to the twinklers. Oh, la la, purely, in a pure manner. Oh, say but swift and still a vain essaying. Troth today, trend tomorrow. I invert the initial of your tripartite and sign it sternly, and adds to girdle on your breast. What do you hear, breastplate?
I hear of a hopper behind the door, slapping his feet in a pool of bran.
Bellax, acting like a Bellax. And so the triptych vision passes, out of a hillside into a hillside, fair she fading. Again am I deliciated by the picaresqueness of your hermitage. Now, the own-ire urge iter impellent I feel called upon to ask. Did it ever occur to you, you, prior to this, by a stretch of your iba-borealic imagination, when it's quicker than this quacking, that you might, bar accidents, be very largely substituted in potential secession from your next life by a complementary character, voices apart? Up, Jack, I shudder for your thought. Think, put from your mind that, and take on trust this. The next word depends on your answer. I'm thinking to Thogged, be thanked. I was just trying to think when I thought I felt a flea. I might have. I cannot say, for it is of no significance at all. Once or twice, when I was in Edinburgh with my Adelfoes, Jake Jones, the hand scabby, when I thinkled I were trying on my garden substitute. Boys apart at my next word, neighbours. And maybe more largely nor you quash, yet you, messmate, realize. A few times, so to shape, I chanced to be stretching in the shadow, as I thought, the life right out of myself in my auriculous imaginating. I felt feeling a half Scotch pottage, like round my middle-aging, like Bewley in the base, so that I indicate out to myself, and I swear my guts how that I'm not myself at all, no jolly fear, when I realize by myself how becomingly I to be going to become. Oh, is that the way with you, you crater? In the becoming was the weird, won't that? Hood maketh not frayer. The voice is the voice of joke-up, I fear. Are you imitation Roma now, or Amor now? You have all our empathies, eh, Mr. Trick-Pat? If you don't mind, that is, aside from sings and mush, answering to my straight question. God save the monk, I won't mind this is answering to your strict cross-queets, whereas it would be as unethical for me now to answer, as it would have been nonsensical for you then not to have asked. Same no can, home no will, gangen I am. Gang is mine, and I will return. Out of my name you call me, Leelander, but in my shelter you'll miss me. When Lapak walks backwards, he's darkest horse in Capally suit. You knew me once, but you won't know me twice. I am simpliciter arduous, ours of the school, Frida's child in loving and thieving. My child, know this. Some portion of that answer appears to have been tokened by you from the writings of St. Zenodius, that first liar. Let us hear, therefore, as you honor and obey the Queen, whether the indwellingness of that which shamifieth be entwined of one or atoned of two. Let us hear art simplicissime. Dearly beloved brethren, Bruno and Nola, lemon bog holders and stationary life partners off Orange's St. Nessos Street, were explaining it avicendas all round each other ere yester week out of Ibn Sen and Ipanzush. when him upon Nola Bruno monopolizes his ego Bruno, most unwillingly cesses by the mortal powers, alio Nola equal and opposite Bruno ipso id est, eternally provoking alio, opposite equally as provoked as Bruno, at being eternally opposed by Nola. Por omnibus, singalo singularum, so is he. One might here and there beyond that lion roar in the air again, the zoo-hoo-hoom of Phelan make call. Bruin goes to noble, aver who is, if is it sin? Or you mean no lands but volans, an alibi, do you, mute malice, suffering unegoistically from the singular but positively enjoying on the plural? Justify of that soul, you breather. Remember, blither, thou must lie. Oh, yes, oh, yes. I never dreamt of being a postman, but I mean in Australian someplace, mults deeply beloved. My Alaboy brother, negoist cabler of this city, whom 'tis better ne'er to name, my said brother, the skip god, expelled for looking at churches from behind, who is sender of the Hallow Eve cenograph in prose and verse every All Souls night. High Brazil Brandons deferred, min Erse Clare language, not, 9. Assas, Dublier, per neuropaths. Punk, starving today, plays punk, opening tomorrow, 2 plays punk, wire splosh, how to plays punk, cabler. Have you forgotten poor Albi Sobrino's Jeff, you blighter, identifiable by the necessary white patch on his rear? How he went to his swilter's land after his lungs, my sad late brother, before his colonial expansion? Won't you join me in a small Hail Mary, a bottle of the best, for well-met Capella, united Irishmen, what though preferring the stranger, the coughs and the itches and the minis and the ratties, the opulos and bilgences, for of his was the patriots mistaken. The heart that wast our Grom agree, yet be there some who mourn him, concluding him dead, and more there be that wait to stand. His fucks up the stairs, and the ladgers in his hairs, he ought to win that double VC. Full graps for an end-upper, half moxie on his hole. Would he were even among the lost, from ours bereft beyond belongs. Oremus pur fraternibus, that he may yet escape the gallows, and still remain ours faithfully departed. I wronged you. I never want to see more of bad men, but I want to learn from any on the earth, like Tass with much thanks. Here's ditto, if he lives same place in the antipathies of Austrasia, or anywhere with my fawn just on his hoosh money, safe and damned, or has hopped it, or who can throw any lime on the sopjack, my fond foster, albeit Nolan, the workings, NSW, his condition off the venerable jerry-built, not belonging to these parts, who, I remember him to me, when we were like bro and sis over our castor and porridge, with his Roman, I suppose, expecting for his Clarence Negus a teetotum abstainer. He feels he ought to be as ashamed of me as me to be ashunned of him. We were in one class of age, like to 2 clots of egg. I am most beholding to him, my namesake, as we said it in our Amharican, through the doubly telewisher. Out past hearts, wag short per times, worn down shoes upon his feet, to whose redress no tongue can tell. In his hands a boot. Spare me do a copper or 2, and happy I'll hope you'll be. It will please me behind with thanks from before, and love to self and all. I remain here your truly friend. I am no scholar, but I loved that man, who has apricot lops with his moonshine in his profile, my semblable, my freer. I call you my half-brother because you in your soberer Aushumic moments remind me deeply of my natural say-when brothel in feed, hop and jollity, S.H. Devitt, that benighted Iris maimed, who is tearly belaboured by Sydney and Albany. As you sing it, it's a study. that letter self-penned to one's other, that never perfect, ever planned? This non-day diary, this all-night's newsery reel. My dear sir, in this wireless age, any old rooster can pick up stones, but who waxed he so anguished? Was he vector victored, a victim vexed? Mighty sure, way for his vehicle. A perambulator ram into his bag small when he was reading a laud with 2 ecolights, and he's been failing of that kink in his arts over since. Madonna and child, idealist, leading a double life, but who, for the brilliance of brothers, is the Nolan as appearant nominally? Mr. Nolan is pronominally Mr. Gottgab. I get it. By hearing his thing about a person, one begins to place him for a certain intro. Eureka! He stands pat for you before a direct object in the feminine, I see. By maiden's name. Now, I am earnestly asking you and putting it as between this yo-who and that homonym, will just you search through your Gabgut memoirs for all of 2 minutes for this impersonating pronolan, fair head on foul shoulders? Would it be in twofold truth an untaken mispatriate, too fulfully true, and really a Dublin ganger, much about your own medium with the sandy whiskers? Poke me nabs in the ribs, and pick the erst wort out of his mouth. Treble Stouter of Holy Baggot Street, formerly sword meat, who I surpassed him lately for 4 and 6, bringing home the Christmas as heavy as music, hand to eyes on the pier for Noel's Arch. In blessed Foster's place is doing the dirty on me with his tantrums, and all these God-forgiven kilowatts I'd be better off without. She's right to him, she's left by me, Jenny Rediviva. Toot, better for you, Mr. Nobru. Toot, toot, better for you, Mr. Anol. This is the way we, of a red Tetterday morning. When your contraman from Turkey is looking for writing, that is not a good sign, not? I speak truly. It's a sure sign that it's not. What though it be for the sow of his heart? If even she were a good pool peggeen? If she ate your windowsill, you wouldn't say so. Would you be surprised after that, my asking, have you a bull, a boss bully with a whistle in his tail to scare other birds? I would. Were you with Cindy and Sandy attending Goliath, a bull? You'd make me sag what you like to. I was intending a funeral, simply and samply. They are too wise of solving their silbings, and both croon to the same theme. Tug bag is baggots, when a crispin socolus besoups, juts, camps, or clap a claws an Irvingite off the docks. A luck change, I see. Thinking young through the muddle-age spread, the moral fat his mental leans on. We can cop that with our strat that is called corkscrewed. It would be the finest boulevard billy for a mile in every direction from Lismore to Cape Brendan, Patrick's, if they took the bint out of the middle of it. You told of a tryst, too, a tutu. I wonder now, without releasing secrets of the alcove, turturs or rab-rabs, have I heard mention of whose name anywhere? Mallow Lane or Damask? Strike us up either, and have you heard of Van Humper or Abel Theresa Kane? Mark. He'd wrapped his drarrocks on Mansion his parrock, and he had to barra the water-class shark-class aft the Archbishop of Yarrock. Broad ribnobs on the bummel, and lily-pets on the lee. A being again in becomings again, from the Sallies to the Allies through their central power. Pierce, quick. Oh, Tara's thrush, the share-pusher. And he said he was only taking the average grass temperature for Green Thursday, the blotchy scalager. Who you know the muscle man, his muscle mum and missile mam, Maomi mamie, my mo mum. He loves the dreary lane. Feel felicitations to daft Mr. Hairwigger, who has just had twin little curs. He was resting between Horrocks' sheets, wailing for white warfare, true boor Welsh Breton, and unbiased by the embarrassment of disposal. But the first woking day by thunder, he stepped into the breach and put on his recreation trousers and riding apron in Baltic Bigrad. The old soggy was when the bold boys of Iran wouldn't join up. How voice you that, nice Sandy man? Not large, good man, is he, Sandy nice? Ask him this 1 minute up, throw inner lotus of his burly ear, womit, he dropped his basses to P flat. And for that, he was all laughed, and then baited, the whole gamut. Lunacy, martyr died, mad wake me Herculast, Judas est, Paraskivimanast, Luradogt, and need I tell ye false crescendid. Dias Domnas, dulled to dullhood, and Annie de Little, his dainty diva in Celtic twilights, singing him hen-pecked Russish through the bars. Mr. Wallace's wild as the Krasnian Sea, Grabashag Grugi, scoop and I'll cure ye, mother of emeralds are a poog neighbours. Capilla, Rubrilla, and Melcomomilla, Dorby without delay. Well, I beg to traverse same above statement by Saxy looters in their back hall of Kolkata, what reflects upon my administrance of slow poisoning, as my Dodir Devere revered main here was confined to guardroom, I Hindustan, by my pint of his filtered Pilsen's bottle, due to Xenophia Holwell, H and JCS, which I was bringing up my qui parapothecary's orders in my set-down chair, with my mud face packet from my cash chemist and family drugger, Surager Dowling, V.S., to our oral surgeon, Afamado Herductor Ahmed Borumborad, M.A.C.A. Sahib, of 1001 Umbrella Street, Seringapadam, Allipuli, to see what was my water good, my mesical Wasserguss, for repairs done by Bullworm in the rear of Pilch Knickers, 7 yards to his gallantar pole on perch, together with his, for me, unfillable slopper, property of my deeply for fear reverbereared, who is costing us most fortunes, which I am writing in my petition to Cabinet General, when he was sitting him humpbacked in dry, filthy heat to his Trinidad's pinslers at their orpantings, entailing a laxative tendency to marry, especially with him being forbidden fruit and certified by his secular clergy to have as bad as my emotional volvula, with a basketful of priesters crossing the St. Gorges to anoint him with Tommy Moore's maladies, and thereinafter liable to succumb when served with letters potent below the belch. If my reputed husbandship, H.R.R., took a brief one on his shirt sales out of the alleged given mineral, telling me see his Ferengistan Sambat papers, Sunday features of a welcomed aperitif with ballad of Errol Piercy O, he never battered one eagles before paying me his duty on my anniversary to the Paradise list in my nil ensemble, in his lazy chair, but he hid up my hemi faces in all my mayoranis, and he locked plumb into my mirry mouth like Issumacy morning in the end of time, with the so light hope on his ruddy cheeks and raw jaws, and my charmer, whom I dipped my hand in, he simply showed me his propendiculous load poker, sea serpents, hisses, stones, which was, as then is, produced in his man's way by this wisest of Vikramadidationists, with the remure remark in his Goligurati, Iran for parasites with rum for turkey cockies, so Lithia M.D. as this is for snooker wort. Which was said by whim to whom? It wham, but whim I can't remember. Fantasy on fantasy, amnes fantasies. And there is nihil nuder under the clothing moon, when Ota we wore wifical of Torquils. Bumps her dumpsy diddle down in her wool sark, she mowed our hoity-loity girry of peerlesses to set up in all their bombosities a feudal fealty, fanned, flounced, and frangipanned, while the mass tab, whereby Ephialtes has exceeded is the measure, simplex mendacius, by which our Otis cuts his throat. Ark away now. Yerds and nudes say eyes and nose, vide, vide. Let Avon be member for gates of gold, for their fadeless sons bewrayed her. I rise, Osiris's, be thy mouth given unto thee, for why do you lack a link of luck to poise upon to perfect peace? On the vigneto is a raging goose, the overseer of the house of the oversire of the seas, new men triumphant saith, fly as the hawk, cry as the corncrake, Annie Latch of the postern is thy name. Shout! My heart, my mother, my heart, my coming forth of darkness, they know not my heart, O cool and dearest. Mon gloomery, mon glamoury, what a surprise, dear Mr. Preacher, I to hear from your astronomical modesty. Yes, there was that skew arch of chrome, sweet home, flood lit up above the flabberghosted firmament, and bump where the camel got the needle. Talk about iridescencies. Ruby and beryl and chrysolite, jade, sapphire, jasper and lazuli. Orca bellona, heaven cry at earth call, et not Athos? Extinct your volcanology for the lava of moltens. It's you, not me's, in erupting Hecla. Ophiuchus, being visible above the horizon, Muliarcula occluded by Saturn's serpent ring system, the Pisciolines, Nova Ardonis and Prisca Parthenopaea are a bonny's feature in the northern sky. Earth, Mars and Mercury are surgents below the rim of the zenith part, while Arctura, Anatolia, Hesper and Misembria weep in their mansions over north, haste, soot and waste. Apep and watch it. Holy snakes, chase me Charlie, Eva's got barley under her fluencies. The Ural Mount is on the move, and he'll quivy her with his strombolo. Waddleworth, the bag of tow, as broad above as he is below, creeping through the lion grass and bull's rushes, the obese Indian, before the Enfant de Moria's class, in Bill Chassa's shot shrift writing academy, camouflaged as a blancmange and maple syrup. Obeisance, so their sit-in-ins is the felicity of this orp. Her shake to slave, his dick to Dave, and the fat of the land to Gygas. The treadmill pebble dropper half a head over ground, and she'd only chits-chats in her spanking bee bonnetry, a lapalosa. Up the slanger, 3 cheers and a hava for the name Dan McGraw. The giant sun is in his eminence, but which is chief of those white dwarfies of which he ever is surabanded? And do you think I might have being his 7th? He will kitzel me on my elbow. What about his age, says you? What about it, says I? I will confess to his sins and blush me further. I would misdemean to rebuke to the libels of snots from the flesh shambles, the canals. Cyanamite is too good for them. 2 over 30s in shore shorties. She's Ascapot at Nile Lodge, and she's kitchen carry at the left, Mrs. Hammerson. Will you warn your old Habersund, barking at baggermen, his chokeful chewing his chain? Response, if you please. The said Sully, a baraka associated with tinkers, the Black Hand, Shovelly Vans, writer of annoyingmost letters and scurrilous ballets in Parsi French, who is McGrath's thug and smells cheaply of Power's spirits like a deep-sea dibbler, and he is not fit enough to throw guts down to a bear. Silfling me, when is a maid not a maid, he would go to any pass length for her. So long, Sully man. If they cut his nose on the stitcher, they had their 7 good reasons. Here's to the leg lift of my snuff and trout stocking tinker chop. Orange fin with a mosaic of dispensations and a frore and black potato from my church milliner. When Lynch brother with workers, friends and company with T.C. King and the warden of Galway is prepared to stretch him sacred by the powers to the starlight, L.B.W. Hemp, hemp, hooray, says the captain in the moonlight. I could put him under my palliasse and slep on him all nights as I would roll myself for holy-poly over his borrowing places. How we will make laugh over him together, me and my Riley in the vicar's bed. Quink, says I. He calls to me Granny Stream Auburn when I am hiding under my hair from him, and I cool him my finicking. He's so joyant a bounder. Plunk, said he, inasmuch as I am delightful to be able to state with the joy of lifing in my 40 winkers that a handsome sovereign was freely pledged in their pennies in the sluts machine, along with a cherry wicker kishabrack of Mary fruit under shadow la rose, to both the leg-intimate lady performers of display unquestionable, Elizabeth and Marietta Gunning, H.2O, by that noblesse of leechers at his Saxon tannery, with motto in Walsh's French Latin, O'Neill saw Queen Molly's pants, and much admired engraving, meaning complete manly parts, during alleged recent act of our chief Margy magistrates, 5 inches above the kneecap, as required by statutes. V.I.C. 5-6. If you won't release me, stop to please me up the leg of me. Now, you see. Respect, S.V.P. Your wife, Ammon, Annam, Am, Ann. You wish to take us, fru Maria, by degrees as artis literarumque patrona, but I am afraid, my poor woman of that same name, what with your Sylvains and your Salvines, you are misled. Alas, for living's pleasures! Lordy-daw and lady-done, Uncle Foozle and Auntie Jack, sure that old humbugger was boycotted and girl-cotted in debt and doom on hill and haven, even by the show the flag flotilla, as I'm given now to understand, ill-scribed in all the gratuitouses, and conspewed in the take-your-hand-aways. Bumpty-tumpty, sot on a wall, mute art for the million. There wasn't an archimandrite of Danes Island and the townlands, nor a minx from the Isle of Woman, nor a one of the 4 cantons, nor any on the whole wheel of his economical conciliabulum, nor no gent Injun maid, on Alad the whole scurface of the Yorth, would come next or nigh him, Mr. Eel Whipper, seed and nursery man, or his all-gas bungalow, auxilium meum solo a domino, am sad, for rhyme or ration, from piles or faces after that. All ears did wag, old air awake, as Piers Orell was flappergangsted. Recount. I have it here to my fingers' ends. This liggy-piggy wanted to go to the jam pot, and this leggy-peggy spelt P. And these lucky puckers played at pooping tool tom. Mazda, das, ma, madas, sadam. Pater patrum, cum filiabus familiarum. Or but now, and arriring out of her Marjorie Waters heads, and not to change that subjunct from the traumaturgid for once in a while, and darting back to stuff, if so be you may identify yourself with the hin in you, that fluctuous neck merchantur, bloodfadder and milk mother, since then our too many of her, Owen Aliffy, and getting on to daddy again, as them we're ne'er free of. Was he in tea ere he went on the beer, or didn't he on time do something seemly heavy in sugar? He sent out Christy Cullum, and he came back with the jailbird's unbespokables in his beak, and then he sent out Le Caron Crow, and the pieces is still looking for him. The seeker from the swade, the bees abouties from the parent swarm. Speak to the right, rotusist Carcanny. He can ne'er be bothered, but maun ne'er be waked. If there is a future in every past, that is present. Quis est qui non novit Quinnigan, and qui que quot at Finnegans Wake. Stump. His producers, are they not his consumers? Your examination round his factification for incamination of a warping process. Declaim. Arra irara hirara man. Weren't they arriving in clans' destinies for the embandiment of Adregias Agnidapes, Fogaballers and Panhybernskas, after the crack and the lean years, scalp jaggers and house hunters, like the messicles of the great god, a scarlet trainful, the 2-edged Petrad, totaling legates and prelates in their aggregate ages 32 plus undesim centuries of them with insiders, extra omnes and tutti fruttis all cunct, from Rathgar, Rathanger, Roundtown and Rush, from America Avenue and Asia Place and the Afrian Way and Europa Parade, and Bisoga the walleys of New Such Wilds, and from Vico, Mespil, Rock and Sorrento, for the lure of his wheel and the fear of his Opidomic, to his Salon d'Espera in the keel of his crawl, like loads of oars flocking fast to Mount Maxi Magnetic, afeard he was a gunner but affared to stay away. Marionites, Dumps Dumdrummers, Lucanicans, Ashtaumas, Batterisby Parks and Crumlin Boyards, Phillipsburgs, Cabraists and Finglassies, Ballymonites, Rahiniacs and the Bettlers of Clontarf, for to contemplate in manifest, and pay their first-rate duties before the both of him, 12 stone aside, with their Thieves le Rouet and their Chevalier Thirst, and their whisky ad inferos, and their usque ad ebraios, at and in the licensed booziness premises of his delightful bazaar and reunited magazine hall by the magazine wall, Husties and Co. exports, for his 566th birthday, the grand old McGuinness Moore, Percy and Raleigh, taker of the tributes, their Renseki Popacork and Piotr the Great, holding Dunca's Durbar, boot kings and India rubber umpires, and shawks from Paisley, and muftis in Muslim, and Sultana Rezains, and Jordan Amandas, and a row of Jam Sahibs, and a odd Principessa in her petted coat, and the Queen of Knights' Clubs, and the Cloddock ringleaders, and the 2 Salams, and the half a ham, and the Hansas Khan, with 2 fat Maharashas, and the German Selvageiser, and he polished up, protemptible, tintinambulating to himself so self-rich, and there was J.B. Dunlop, the best tyrant of Irish times, and a swanks of French wine stewards and Tudor keepsakes, and the Cesarevich for the current Counter Leo de Garia St. Leger, riding lap saddle long legs up the Oaks' staircase on muleback like Amaxodias Isteroprotos, hind quarters to the fore and kicked the lift, and he handy grabbed onto his trolley natural anthem, Horsibus, keep your tail up, and as much as the holla of the vacant throne room, old Loaf's Buttery, could safely accommodate at the houses of Orange and Betters, MP, permeated by Druids, DP, Brehans, BP, and Flahulags, FP, and Agiapomenites, AP, and Anti-Pomelites, PP, and Ulster, Cong, and Munster's Herald, with Athclain signing and Athlone pursuivant, and his imperial catchering, his Féin one, and his Geminos Sanctions in Effoid and Ordelon, and his diamond-skulled granddaughter, Adamantaya Lyubokovskva, all murdering Irish a muck and a mack out of their boom companions in Paunch, Jab and Dogrel and Pamel and Gugarati, after plenty of his fresh stout and his good balls of malt, not to forget his Oils Amona nor his Beers O'Reilly, sopped down by his Panis Anagolorum. At Kennedy's kiln she kned her dough back of her bake for me, buns, socializing and communicating in the deification of his members for to nobble or salvage their hero bit of him, the poor old bolus loose, with his Arturius scleroses, Doderick O'Gonnock rack, busted to the world at large, on the table round, with the floodlights switched back, as true as the Vernons have Brian's sword, and 12 by 1 Tilly Tallows round in Ringcamp, circumassembled by his daughters in the forgiveness of his sons, lying high as he lay in all dimensions, in court dress and Ludmer's chain, with a hogo fluorescent of his swathings round him, like the commulium of scents in an Italian warehouse, Ericas clustered on his hair, the spectrum of his present mocking the candidites of his dadtid, bag pudding podded to the death spot, bewept of his chilidrin and seraphim, poors and personalities, venturous, drones and dominators, ancients and all ancients, with his butt end up, expositoed for sale after referee's inspection, bulgy and glorious, bound to ignorious, healed, cured and embalsamate, pending a rouse eruption of his bogey, most highly astounded as it turned up after his life overlasting, at thus being reduced to nothing. Bapigo, gully and gaff for us all, and all his mortis calisthenic tripping a trep as nenny a twanting. Mulo mulelo, homo humilo, dancia dedio, dude, o bosa, o busa, o muerta, o mord mamato, maut maro, o smirch, O Schmerz, wo Hillel, wo Halal, thou Tuni, thou Thanaton, u Martyr, u Damnor, Shit, Merg, u Lumu, Quam, Malawinga, Malawunga, Ser, o Ser, Si, as Si, Hamovs, Himovs, Mamor, Requiem Eternal, give dawn alai in Dolmany. Bad lucks per pepperpot loosen his eyes. Sich! But there's leps of flam in Finnegans Wake. The keen has passed. Long lift the king. God save you, king, muster of the hidden life. God serve you, kingly adipose rex. I had 4 in the morning and a couple of the lunch and 3 later on. But your souls to the jowl, do ye? Think? Fime? Fud? Impassible tissue of improbable liars. Do you mean to set there where y'are now, coddling your supernumerary leg with that bizarre tongue in your toke shap, and your Hindis and shindies like a muck in a market, sorely boy, repeating yourself, and tell me that? I mean to sit here on this out knoll where you are now, surly guy, repeating myself as long as I live in my home spins, like a sleeping top, with all that's buried offsins, incensed insides of me. If I can't upset this pound of pressed olives, I can sit up zounds of sounds upon him. Oliver, he may be an earth presence. Was that a groan? Or did I hear the dingle bagpipes wasting war and... Watch. Tris, anima mea. Prisoner of love, bleating heart, low-laid herd, orb in hand, wonted foot, usque, lignum in. Wrath of Gar and Donnabrook fire. Is the strays world moving mound, or what static babel is this, tell us? Hooshy, Lincoln in. Hooshy. The snare drum, lay your lug till the ground. The dead giant man alive. They're playing thimbles and bodkins. Clan of the Gale, hop, who's within? Dove, Gaul, and Fin Shark, they are ring to the rescue. Zin. Cramaboo, Cromwell to victory. We'll gore them and gash them and gun them and gloat on them. Zin. Oh, widows and orphans, it's the yeomen. Red shanks forever, up lanks. The cry of the road here it is, the white hind. Their slots, link, the hound hunt horning. Send us in peace, title. Christ in our Irish times, Christ on the air's independence, Christ hold the freedman's chairman, Christ light the Dolly expressed. Slog, slagged, and slaughter, rape the daughter, choke the pope. Our cloudy father, unsure, non-good, sin. Sold, I am sold, Brine a bride, my Esther, my sister, Brine a bride, goodbye, Brine a bride, I sold. Pipette, dear, us, me. Fort, Bayreuth, march. Me, I'm true, Isolde, Pipette, my precious, Zin. Brine a bride, bet my price, Brine a bride. My price, my precious, Zin. Brine a bride, my price. When you sell, get my price, Zin. Pipette, my priceless one. Oh, mother of my tears, believe for me, fold thy son. Zin. Now we're getting it. Tune in and pick up the foreign counties. Hello? Zin. Hello? Tit. Tell your title. A bride. Hello, Ballymacarrot. Am I through, is... Miss? True? Tit. What is the time? Silence. Act drop. Stand by. Blinders. Curtain up. Juice, please. Foots. Hello. Are you cigar, shank and wheat? I got you. Gobelins, Callan, cans. Perfect. Now, after that, just a jiff siesta, just permit me a moment. Challenger's deep his child's play to this, but by our soundings in the Swiss channels land is due. A truce to demobbed swear words. Clear the line, priority call. Sybil? Better that or this Sybil head this end? Better that way? Follow the baby spot. Yes, very good now. We are again in the magnetic field. Do you remember on a particular Luke summer night following a crying fair day? Moisten your lips for a lightning strike and begin again. Mind the flickers and dimmers. Better? Well, the eyes is times, the ales is Penzance, vehement general, deli expulsed. Still calling of some wave from its specific, not more, less continuous. There were fires on every bald hill in Holy Ireland that night. Better so? You may say they were, son of a cove. Were they bonfires, that clear? No other name would at all befit them unless that. Born of fires, with their blue beards streaming to the heavens. Was it a high white night now? Whitest night mortal ever saw. Was our Lord of the Heights nigh Our Lady of the Valley? He was hoisting himself up and floasting himself around and ghosting himself to merry her murmur like an Andean up a Balkan. Ludes, Carol, was there rain by any chance, mist and dew? Plenty, if you went far enough. There fell some fall of little winter snow, holy as ivory, I gather, Jessie. By Snacht o'clock, the nicest at all, in hilly and even Himalayas. Did it not blow some gales, westnas or ostsint, rather strongly to less, all in humours out of turn, just as they rose and sprungen? Out of all jokes it did, pip-pip, ice cold, burna burni pur, yet o garum fantes. Sturgling, number, peace, Pacific. Do you happen to recollect whether Moona, that high lucky nacht, was shining at all? Sure she was, my midday darling, and not one but a pair of pretty gallagers. Quando? Quanda? Good datey. Late early. Late early, late early, late early. That was latter lake, certainly. And was there frost work about, and thick weather and ice, soon callid, soon frozen, cold on warm but moistly dry, and a boat-shaped blanket of brooma air size, and hellstones, and flambeaus, and voter shouts, and everything to please everybody? Hail, many fell of grace, hoary, moory, smother of fog, there was, so plays your artides, absolutely boiled, obsoletely cowled, Julie and Lulie at their parkiest. The amenities of the amenities with all their amenities, and the firmness of the formous of the famous of the fumous of the first fog in Maiden Vale, catch, and coachant. From Miss Sommer's nice dream back to Mad Winthrop's delugium straymens, one expects that kind of rhymy feeling in the sire season. One certainly does. Desire for hire would tire a shire, phone, funkle, or wire, and mares. Of whitecaps any? Foam flakes flock fuyant from Puck's Rock to Finglass. A lamb's skip for the marines, panorama, the entire horizon cloth, all effects in their joints caused ways, rain drum, wind machine, snowbox, but thunder sheet? No here, under the blankets. This common or garden is now in stiller reality the starry sphere of an oleatorium for broken pottery and ancient vegetables. Simply awful the dirt, an ever-nasty ashtray. I see. Now, do you know the well-known kick-in midden where the ill-assorted first couple first met with each other? The place where Alderman Finnegans, the time when younger men Finnegans? Deed, then I do, W.K. In Fingal, too, they met at Little Peace, aneath the bide tree, yellow house of Snugsborough, Westry Vastagob, and Slot's End, with stockings of Winnings, Folly Merryfalls, all of a two, skidoo and skep humble. Goddameddy, you're a devil of a talker. Is it a place fairly exposed to the four last winds? Well, I faithfully, sincerely believe so, indeed, if all what I hope to charity is half true. This stow on the walls, is it woeful day in bottom? It is woeful indeed, whatever about anything or all else under the green block sun of gone grain Erin. A tricolour ribbon that spells a caution, the old flag, the cold flag. The flag stone, by tombs deep and heavy, to the unavailing memory of peace of the grave. And what seeketh wood and warning thereof? Tricks pissers will be persecluded. There used to be a tree stuck up, an overlisting ash tree. There used, sure enough, beside the Annar, at the ford of Slievenamond, oakley ashes elm, with a snowdrift from one birchen bough, and the grandest, crownedest consecrated maypole in all the rain-laden history of Wiles. Brown's Thesaurus plantarum from Nolan's, the Prittlewell press, has nothing alike it, for we are fed of its forest, clad in its wood, burked by its bark, and our lecture is its leave. The cran, the king of all crans, squire maid and dame's man of Plantagenets, high and holy. Now, no hiding your wren under a bushel. What was it doing there, for instance? Standing for an instant, in Cimmerian sunshine, and in Cimmerian shudders. You saw it visibly from your hiding place. No, from my invisibly lying place. And you then took down in stereo what took place being tunk committed. I then took my taken place lying down, I think I told you. Solve it. Remounting a little towards the Oregon of spaces, just how grand in cardinal rounders is this preeminent giant Sir Arbor? Your bard's high view, Avis on Valley. I would like to hear you burble to us in strict conclave, purpurando, and without too much Italiote interference, what you know in petto about our sovereign being's talk, tonans tamazeus. O dite! Corcorandi udi udite, your eminence, your eminence, and delicted fraternitries. There's Tudor queen's maids, and Idaho shop girls, and they woody babies growing upon her, and bird flamingans, Sweeney swinging fugelwards on the tipmast, and Urania Epples playing hop to ciel bump to tear, and Tyburn Fenians snoring in his quickened bowl, and crossbones strewing its holy floor, and culprins of Erasmus Smith's Burstle boys, with their underhand lead pencils climbing to her crotch for the origin of spices, and Charlotte darlings with silk blue ask-me's chattering in dissent to them, Gibbonses and Gobbinses, guelphing and gibbering, proffering prejues to their Anatoles, and blighting fine blasts on their catastripes, and the kill-maimed them pensioners chucking overthrown milestones up to her to fall her cranberries and her pommes-annettes for their unnatural refection, and hand-painted hoydens plucking husbands of him, and cock robins much more hatching most out of his misado egg drazzles for him, the sun and moon pegging honeysuckle and white heather down, and tim-tits tapping resin there, and tomahawks watching tar elsewhere, creatures of the wold approaching him, hollow mid-ivy, for to claw and rub, hermits of the desert barking their infernal shins over her triliteral roots, and his acorns and pine corns shooting wide all sides out of him, plentitude outsends of plenty to thousands, after the truants of the utmost fear, and her downslider in that snaked to naughty, whimmering woman's salibe, such a fascinating satinous dress out of that exquisitive creation, and her leaves, my darling dearest, sins in sinning since the night of time, and each and all of their branches meeting and shaking twisty hands all over again in their new world, through the germination of its gemination from on's outset till odd's end, and encircle him circularly. Evove. Is it so exalted, eximious, extraordinary, and excelsiorizing? Amongst men like trees walking, or trees like angels weeping, no birdie avier soar any wing to eagle it, but rocked of agues clipped for eye. telleth that eke the truth? Musha of a mixness. A shrub of libertine, indeed. But that stain of law in dead what styles its naming. Tod, too hard parted. I've got that now, Dr. Merriman, Issy. Finite mens mid infinite true. The form masculine, the gender feminine. I see. Now, are you derivative of it yourself in any way? The true tree, I mean. Let's hear what science has to say. Pundit the next best king. Splank. Up fell baum. It reminds of the weeping of the daughters, and remounts to the sense of rest. The withold, the froush, and the dibble. How this loose affair brimsts of phosphorus. And was this tree-man angel on his sword bowm end because knockout the nick neighbour knacked him in the neck shaft? Well, he was ever himself for the presension of crudities to animals, for he had put his own nickel name on every toad, duck, and herring before the climber clomb aloft, doing the mid-hill of the park, flattering his bitter hooft with her conundrums. He would let us have the 3 barrels. Such was a bit too thicker for the muster of the hoose, so as he called down on the grand precursor who called him a crawler of the dupest dye, and thundered at him to flatch down off that erection and be as slimed of himself for the balance of his life. Oh, Finlay's cold pawed. Days begotten. Were you there, Hare? Were you there when they lagged him through the coombe? Whoa, who? Sometimes it grows on me to ramble. Whoa. So that was how he became the first of our tree fellas. Yes, and in the absence of any sobery quiet, the fainest of our true palaces. Baps bombslinger. How near do you feel to this Capo promontory, sir? There do be days of dry coldness between us, when he does be like a lodging house, far astray. And there do be nights of wet wind whistling, when he does be making me onions whoop all kinds of ways. Now you are mayor of the Merk, Lansdowne Road. She's threwed her pippins thereabouts, and they've cropped up tooth on edge, with hates to leaven this so-cried isle. Now, thorny born, follow the spotlight, please. Concerning a boy. Are you acquainted with a pagany, vicariously known as Treacle Tom, who is, I suggest, Finnegans as his habitat? Consider yourself on the stand now, and watch your words, take my advice. Let your motto be, inter nubila numbum. Never you mind about my mother or her hoppet out. I consider if I did, I would feel frightfully ashamed of admired vice. He is a man of around 50, struck on Anna Lynch's peco with milk and whiskey, who does miswiges and has more dirt on him than an old dog has fleas, kicking stones and knocking snow off walls. Have you ever heard of this old boy Thom, or Tim of the Fishy Stair, who belongs to Kimmage, a crofting district, and is not all there, and is all the more himself since he is not so, being most of the time down at the Green Man, where he steals, pawns, belches, and is accursed, drinking gaily 2 hours after closing time, with the coat on him skin side out against apparitions, with his socks outsewed his spring sides, clapping his hands in a feeble sort of way, and systematically mixing with the public going for groceries, slapping grates and little gets soundly with his catgut belts, flapping bare sides, and waltzy wembling about in his accoutrements, always in front of the tabernackles, like a long-armed Lou, when he would be finished with his tea. Is it that fellow, as mad as the brambles he is? Touch him, with the lawyers sticking to his trouser shins, and the swat me knotting on the bask of his beret. He has kissed me more than once, I am sorry to say, and if I did commit glad rolleries, may the loon forgive it. Oh, wait till I tell you. We are not going yet. And look here. Here's, my dear, what he done, as snooks as I am saying so. Get out, you dirt. A strangely striking part of speech for the hottest worked word of our sprog. You're not, unhindered and odd times, mere thumb show, lately? How do I know? Such my billet. Buy a barrack pass. Ask the Hornies, tell the robbers. You are alluding to the picking pockets in Lower O'Connell Street. I am alluding to the peek-in packet, but I am alluding from Lower O'Connell Street. Now, just wash and brush up your memorias a little bit. So I find, referring to the patter of the present man, an early demented brick-thrower, I am wondering to myself in my mind, qua our Ark of the Covenant, was Toucher a Methodist, whose name, as others say, is not really Thom? Was this salt son of a century from Boaterstown, Shivering William, the sealiest old forker ever hawked Cranach, who is always with him at the Big Elm and the Arch, after his teeth were shaken out of their sockets by the Rang Dog, for having 5.73 of non-Aryan blood in him abaft the seam level, the scatterling, wearing his cow-beamer and false clothes, of a brewer's grains pattern with back buckons with his motto on, "You'll remember," ostensibly for that occasion only of the 12th day Paxson Quantum wedding, I'm wondering. I bet you are. Well, he was wondering, you bet, whatever was his matter in his mind, too, give him his due, for I am sorry to have to tell you, Hollow and Evie, they were coming down from off him. How curious, an epiphany. Hodie casus es ovra conton. It looked very like it. Neither nos nisses, and neither garments. Man is minded of the matter, what? Woolly, walty? Aye, another good button gone wrong. Blond man's blaff, like a skib leak lintel the harbour, laden with Pamela's, Peggities, Pollywollies, Questuants, quainter quilties, quickamerries. Concaving now convexly to the semi-demi hemispheres, and from the female angle, music ministering, were the subligate sisters, P and Q, Clopatrix, Cheriopest, Mutatis Mutandis, in pretty much the same pickle, the peach of all pidum, the quest of all quicks. Between ourselves, the prettiest pickles of unmatchable mutantes I ever bo-peeped at, see-saw shall she, since the town go went gonning on pranksome quain. Silks appeal and sulks a lusty, boy and giddlegape and bore. I hear these two goddesses are liable to sue him. Well, I hope the two Collinses don't leg a bail to shoot him. Both were white in black arpists, at clover spilling nicht, gels bachai languist, listed, etudes for the right hand. Were they now? And were they watching you as watcher as well? Where do you get that wash? This representation does not accord with my experience. They were watching the watched watching. Wretches all. Good. Hold that watching brief and keep this witching longer. Now, retouching friend Tomsky, the enemy, did you gather much from what he let drop? We are sitting here for that. I was Rooshian mad, no lie, about his shapeless hat. I suspect you must have been. You are making your thunderous mistake, but I was dung sorry for him too. Oh, Shaum. Not really. Were you sorry you were mad with him then? When I tell you, I was Rusia Marodny mad with myself altogether, so I was, for being sorry for him. So? Absolutely. Would you blame him at all stages? I believe in many an old stager, but what seemed sooth to a Greek summed nooth to a Giantel. Who kills the cat in Cairo, coaxes cocks in Gaul? I put it to you that this was solely in his sunflower state, and that his heliodraping het was why maids all sighed for him, ventured and vied for him. After put away o' Kansas, Liburnum, and New Amsterdames, it wouldn't surprise me in the very least. That tear and this mole, your tear and our smile. 'Tis life that lies if woman's eyes have been our old undoing. Lid after lid, Reform in mine size his deformation. Tiff-puff of my nostril, would you puff the earthworm out of my ear? He could Claude boose his eyes to the birth of his garse. He could lump all his lot through the half of her play, but he just couldn't laugh through the whole of her farce, because he warn't billed that way. So he out and outs his volime tangere, and has a lightning consultation, and he down-a-downs his pantalogians, and made a piece of first per personal poetry that stay remains to be cleaned. Booms of bombs and heavy rethodders, this aim to you. The tale, so mastrodontic as you tell it, nearly takes your own mum-mouth's breath away. Your troppers are so unrelieved because his troopers were in difficulties. Still, let stultitiam dan in veno condone ineptias made of veritus. How many were married on that top of all strapping mornings after the midnight turkey drive, my good watcher? Perhaps that'd be telling, with a hoe for him and a hay for her. But as regards to Tammy Thornycraft, I define the lawn mare and the laney moweress and all the prentices of Wiles to massage him. Now, from Gunner Shotland to Guinness Scenography, come to the ballet at the Tailor's Hall. We mean to be melee on the Mailer's Mall, and leap, rink, and make folly till the gala's gall. Awake, come awake! Every old skin in the leather world, in fact the whole stock company of the old house of the leaking barrel, was Thomistically drunk, 2 by 2, lurking at tootlers with tombers of beggars, the blogs and turfs and the brandy-wine bank rompers, true Norman fashion, I have been told, down to the bank lean clerks. Some nasty blunt clubs were being operated after the tradition of a Wesleyan bottle riot act, and a few plates were being shied about, and tumblers bearing traces of fresh porter rolling around, independent of that, for the Aaron of Finn's insult. And then followed that whopping breakfast at the Heaven and Covenant, with Rodeo echoing how his bread cost on the voters would be a comeback for Erewhon, like the depredations of Scandal Ivory, in and on used to wobble sloops off closts, eh? Would that be a tall tale too? This was the grand sire author. This was his in-white horse, Zip. Well, naturally he was. Lout is also genderymen, being Kersfestite. They came from all lands beyond the wave for songs of Inisfield. Quisque and mortem, no pucy Portius either, invitem capinus all round. But the Right Reverend Priest, Mr. Hobson Bond, and the Reverend Bride-elect Frizzy Frau were sober enough. I think they were sober. I think your widdershins there about the Right Reverends. McGraw for the North Wigan Cup team was wedding beast man, papers before us carry. You saw him hurriedly, or did you, if that seems not irrelevant? With Slater's hammer, perhaps, or he was in surge? I hurriedly did, on the stroke of the dozen. I'm sure I'm wrong, but I heard the Reverend Mr. McGraw in search of a stammer kicking the bedding out of the old sexton, Red Fox, good man, around the sacristy, till they were bull-beetle black and buffeteer blue, while I and Flood and the other men, jazzed like brollies and sessuals, was gickling his missus to gackles in the hall. The diviline, she's a lamp in her throat, with her sing-sing leckle and her 12-pound lack. A loyal, wifeish woman cackinic weeping cough, while shillelagh law was all their rage. But you did establish personal contact in epexegesis or on a point of order? That perfumery pond is beyond my Pinnegate pretensions. I am resting on a pigs of Jesus, but I've a big suggestion it was about the pint of porter. You are a soccersome, but this all, as Eyre said to Oscar, was only the child-bearer might blog us well side-split, where Letty's hereditated dark mean swart hairy. Only 'twas woman's to woman with man's throw man. Bully burly, yet hardly hurly. The saloon bulkhead, did you say, or the 'tween decks? Between drinks, I deeply, painfully repeated. Was she wearing Shublady's tiroirs in humour of her hobbies, Massa's star Stella? Mrs. Tan Taylor? Just a floating panel, secretaires sliding drawers, a budge of cleese on her shalter, a cider brass sedas on her annulus find ring, and 40 crow slips in her curling tongues. So this was the dope that woollied the cad that kinked the rock, that noised the rate, that tried the sap, that hugged the mort, that legged in the hoax, that joke built, the jest of junk the jungular, jacked up in a junk the rapper. Lol, gol, you don't say so. All upside down her whole creation. So there was nothing spherical between you. And Drysalter, father of Izzard, how was he now? To the pink man, like an almanax in his shirt and stick-up, brushed all to the bear, the megalomagellan of our wine-vat's waterway, squeezing the life out of the living. Christopher Caramas, such his satisfaction. You punk me. He came, he kissed, he conquered. Vultur Varnar, the must of his glance for coaxing the beam in her eye, that musked belle of this masked ball, Annabella, Lovabella, Pullabella, yup. Titan tongue Tolatone in St. Sabina's, aye, she was lithe and pleasable. Wilt thou the lee? Wilt thou the he? Wilt thou the hussif? The quicker the deep, the safter the sap staff, but the main the mightier, the stricker the straight. To the vast go the game. It is the circumconversioning of the antilithual pagan elves by a Huguenot Cramwell Energuma, or the cacoed addition of an absque literis Patagonian to the Herreraism of a Cabotinesque exploser. I believe you. Typed up really, oh really. Not a, we're nowhere without you. In steam of Tavos now Arbatos above our hearths doth hum. And Malchus crackles logs of fun while Anglis cheers our Ingles. So lent she him ear to borrow his manhood, or so it appears, and borrow his namas? Soulful eyes and salaful hair weed, and the sickly sigh from her gingering mouth, like a Dublin bar in the morning. Primus auri forastime. The park is greater than the whole, says she, but Shackleton's my fortune. Ever thought of being ordained? You've soft to say with ye, Flatter O'Ford, that honey I hardly chew you. Is that answers? It am query. The house was Tutankhamun by the bridge called Tiltas, but are you solely solemnly sure beyond the shatter of the canicula year, nascitur ordo seculi numpit? Seriously and serenely sure behind the shutter, securius indicat umbris tellurem. Date as? Your time of immersion we are still in drought of? Amnis Domine, Marquis of Corrig, a laughing hunter and party Sioux. And crazy-headed Yawn, the Bulway born, fluteful as his Orcan, ex ugola lenonem. And Jams, of Delphins born, or, as olders lay, of Top Hat. Dancing the Nijinsky Choreopiscopally, like an Easter sun round the colander, the vice. Taranta boon today. You should pree him prance the polecat. You would sniff him wops around. You should hear his piedigrot shraying as his skimpy skirpa crashed a fa carombas. A char dancer indeed. Dervilish glad too. Orto vito semi-ricordo. The pantaleonic affection through his blood like a bad influenza in a leap at bounding point. Out of Prisky Poppagenua, the palsied old Priamite, home from Edwin Hamilton's Christmas pantaloonade, Oropos Roxy et Pantharea at the Gaiety, tripudiating round the area with his 52 airs of age. They may reel at his likes, but it's noe bonum's shindo. And with what was Lillibilisibil made Eve made at? Crisps and trains and trinnies and trains. A take back to the virgin page, darn it. I grant ye. The Quobus Quartet were there too, if I mistake not, as a sideline, but pay see the contempt of Senate well to the fore, in an Amnesty meeting, met in Morphos, to decide where again when to meet themselves, flopsome and jerksome, lubber and deliric, drinking unsteadily through the Kerry quadrilles and Listowel lances, and master singing always with that consecutive fifth of theirs, like 4 wise elephants, in and outing under a 12-podestalled table. They were simple scandal-mongers, that familiar and all, Normand, Desmond, Osmond, and Kenneth, making magical history all over the show. In some hum, and other marriage feats. All our stakes they were a-stumbling round the ranky roars assembling, when big Arthur flogged the field at Annie's courting. Suddenly some well-fired play was cast out through the shapstakers of Hoy's house. Certainly there was a hellfire club kicked out through the Wassistas of theirs were. Like Hephaestus Envil, catacalami tumbling, 3 days 3 times into the vacuum. Punch. Or Noe et Ecclesiastes, nonny. Ninny, there is no hay in Eccles's hostel. Yet an I saw a sign of him, if you could scrape out his acquaintance. Name or redress him, and we'll call it a night. .I, apostrophe dot, .O, .L. You are sure it was not a Schuler's shake-up, or a Plighter's palming, or a Winker's wake, etc., etc., you were at? Precisely. Mayhap. Ora pro nobis, Thunder's Day, at a little bit of heaven hoth, the wife of Demetrius, Earl Adam Fitzadam, of a Tartar, Bertha, or Sackville Lorry, and Moreland West, at the auspice for the living Bonnybrook by the river, and A. Briggs Carlyle, guardian of the birds' maids, and Deputy Liza for groom, pontifical mess, or suddenly shot, furtive fired by the riots, no flies, agreest? Mayhem. Also loans through the post, with or without security, everywhere, any amount, muffs of its swamp stakers, purely providential. Floods, the pink man, the squeeze, the pint with the kick, gah, and then the punch to gayless eyes it, fox, the lady with the lamp, the boy in the barley bag, the old man on his arse, great scrap. 'Tis we and you and ye and me, and hymns and hearts and heels and shields. The heiress race, the Aurus nation, the airiest place that e'er stationed. He was culping for penance while you were ringing his bell. Did the Kiki, good man Rude Fox, say anything important? Clam or cram, spick or spat? No more than rich man's periwelka. Word. A gale galled by scheme of scorn, knock, signifying nothing, mock. Fortitudo eos rodamum tenuit, 5 mem, or something very similar. I should like to euphonize that. It sounds an isochronism. Secret speech Hazelton, and obviously disemboweled. But it is good lay law, too. We may take those well-meant kicks for free granted, though ultra vires void, and, in fact, unnecessarily so. Happily, you are not quite so successful in the process verbal, whereby you would sublimate your blepharospasmodical suppressions, it seems. What was that? First I heard about it. Were you, or were you not? Ask yourself the answer. I'm not giving you a short question. Now, not to mix up, cast your eyes around Capel Court. I want you, witness of this epic struggle as yours so mine, to reconstruct for us, as briefly as you can, inexactly the same as a mind's eye view, how these funeral games, which have been pouring over us through Homer's carrier pigeons, massacredoed as the holy name rally round, took place. Which, sure, I told you that, foul. I was drunk all last life. Well, tell it to me be fair, the whole plan of campaign, in that bamboozle and minstrel voice of yours. Let's have it, Christy. The Dublin own, the thrice familiar. Ah, sure, I witless foggus. 'Tis all around me be batters bid hat. Ah, go on now, Master Bones, a gig for a gag with your impediments and your tricks. Blank memory of hatless darky and blued suit. You were ever the gentle poet, dove from Hawarden. Pitch your cap, patch your cap, pratey man. Be nice about it, Bones minor. Look cheerful. Come, delicacy. Go to the end, thou slackard. Once upon a grass and a hopping high grass it was. Faith, then, Mr. Cheery man. First he come up, a gag as a gig, badgerless rake to the town's major from the wests. Mac Smashall Swingy of the cattle axes got up regardless, with a cock on the Kildare side of his tattersall, in his riddle sneaks ragamufflers, and the horrid contrivances seen above, whistling into a bone tolerably delicately the wearing of the blue, and taking off his plush-squadded Bugsby and his perusual flea and wazzy manner, saying good mraukas to Weevily Bolly, and dragging his feet in the usual course, and was ever so terribly nice, really, telling him clean his nagels and fix himself up miles, and so on and so forth, and to take the coom to his grizzlies, and who done that foxy freak on his bear's hairs like fire bursting out of the umpire, and half hang me, sir, if he wasn't wanting his calico body back before he'd to take his life, or so save his life. Then begor, counting as many as 11 to 32 seconds with his pocket browning, like I said, one swan's one. This is my authority. He kept for cursing Haskell's Foulfand and Cogan, for Key, the key of John Dunn's field, for it was for sent, and the way Montague was robbed, and Wolfling to know all what went off, and who burned the hay, perchance wilt thou say, before he'd kill all the Canes, and the price of Patch Purcell's fake totem, which the man, his plantagonist, up from the bog at the depths, who was raging with the thirst of the sacred sponge, and who was a master of pasht, so far as him was concerned, was only standing there nonplussed to the corner of Turbot Street, perplexing about a pomp shop, and preparing to spit, wanting to know, well, the hen convention's compass Memphis he wanted with him knew nothing about. A sarson cruxer, like the Nap O'Farrell, Pattertandy, Moore and Burgess medley. In other words, was that how, in the unusual curse of things, as compliment to compliment, though, after a manner of men which I must and will say seems extraordinary, their chelicula subtler angelic warfare or photoplay finister started? Truly, that I may never. Did one scum then in the aura drama, the death, after some clever play in the mud, mention to the other undesirable, a dumb, during diverse intentional instants, that upon the resume after the Angerus, how for his deal he was a pig-headed Swede, and to wend himself to a Medicis? To be sore he did the huggernut, only it was turnip-hodded dunce, I beg your pardon, and he would jokes boulder blow the beholder with his black masket off the bawling green. Sublime was the warning. The author, in fact, was Mardred. Did he, the first Spike's man, do anything to him, the last spokesman, when after heaving some more smut and chaff between them, they rolled to gutter into the ditch together, Black Pig's Dyke? No, he had his teeth in the back of his head. Did Box then try to shine his puss? No, but Cox did to shin the pun man. The worsted crying, that if never he looked on Leva Holmas again, and the bester hewing that he might ever save son life. Truly, truly, as best as he ever, and so I never. That forty Carlisle touch, breaking the Campton's piano back. Punch! Are you of my meaning that would be going on to about half noon, click o'clock, Pip Emma, Grinwicker time, by your cut quadrant? You will be asking me, and I wish to Higgins you wouldn't, would it? Let it be 12:30, after a somersault at the tardest. And it was 11:30 too before, and such rely on it. Tick up on time. How day a doom? That rising day sinks rosing in a night of 9 weeks' wonder. stamped his marcy buck up. The uneven day of the 11th month of the unevented year, at Mart in Mass, a triduum before our Larry's own day. But which of your chronos, my man of 4 watches, larboard, starboard, dog or dat, dunsink, rugby, ballast and ball, you can imagine. Language this all's fair for the loath of Marses, ambivalent about it. Will you swear all the same you saw their shadows 100 foot later, struggling diabolically over this, that, and the other, their virtues, pro and his principality, cont, near the ruins, Drogheda Street, and kicking up the devil's own dust for the Milesian wind? I will, I did, they were, I swear, like the heavenly militia, so reek me gilly-golly, with my tongue through my toe-cap on the headlong stone of Kismet, if so 'tis the will of whose be done. Weepin' Lorkins, they must have put in some wonderful work, ecad, on the quiet like, during this arms parley. Me here it is, forces vegetarians. Dost thou not think so? Aye. The illegal-looking range or fender, alias turfing iron, a product of hostages and co-engineers, changed feet several times as briars revalved during the weapon swap. Piff, puff, excuse yourself. It was an ersatz lottering can. They did not know the war was over, and were only be-rebelling or be-repelling one another by chance or necessity with sham battles, mere and whiny, as betwixt picture shirts and scutticules, like the character curs in an Irish Roman, to sorrow-break the expulsion of the Danos. What sayest thou, Scuse ask Merrill? That's all. For he was heavily upright man, limbaromena in bucklis tuxada, farsing gutterish. I mean the Morgans and the Dorans in Finnish. I know you don't in Finis. The Mujik of the future, on the Barbary hams of the bashed, co-canally, da Donnelly. Yet this war has made peace, in voina viritas, ab chaos lex nit ver. O bella, o pia, o pura, amen, hand wall amongst us, thanks be to Balbus. All the same, you sound it 'twould clang howlish like Hull hoping for Christmians, but 'twill cling hellish like Engels open to Europeans if you sensed hold the sun, so be vigil. And this pattern pooch punner mine of Concoon and Propre went on, hog and minna, a whole wake, your night after Larry's night, spittin' spite on Dora O'Huggins, Ormond Court Butler, the artillery of the O'Hefferns answering the cavalry of the MacLeods, forte and more forte, 1,001 times according to your cock and a biddy story. Cludy Clongy for years and years, perhaps? That's right. This is his Largo's life. This is me Tim Tom Tom, and this is her 2 pequeeny ones. From the last finger on the second foot of the 4th man to the first one on the last one of the first, that's right. Finny. Very, very finny. It may look funny, but fair it is. This is not good enough, Mr. Brass Latin. Finging and tonging and winging and ponging, and all your rally and ramp and rant. Did you think I was asleep at the wheel? Do you mean to tell grand jurors of Athens of Tartic on your oath, my lad, and ask us to believe you, for all your enduring long terms, with your last foot foremost, that your moon was shining on the tors and on the cresties and wind-blowing night after night, for years and years, perhaps, after you swearing to it a while back before your court examiner, Mark Walter, that there was rain and plenty all the team? Perhaps so, as you grandly affirm, Rodman Calvinic. I never thought it over, Faith. I most certainly think so about it, I hope, unless it is actionable. It would be a charity for me to think about something which I must on no cast account submit, if you ask to me. It was told me as an inspired statement by a friend of myself in reply to salute Tarpey after 3 o'clock mass with 40 ducks indulgent, that some rain was promised to Mrs. Lyons, the invalid of Aunt Tatty Villa, with lots gulping sousers, and likewise he told me the recusant, after telling mass, with 200 genuflections at the split hour of blight when bars are keeping so sly, as was what's follows.
He is doing a walk, says she.
In the field mixed park, says he, like a terrible Turk, says she, letting loose on his nursery, and begalla, he meet himself with Mr. Michael Cleary of a Tuesday, who said Father McGregor was desperate at the bad place about that balls, and ejaculating about all the stair rods and the cat's pew swashing his earwanker, and inconvenience being locked up for months, owing to being patronized by stragglers abusing the apparatus, and for Tarpey to pull himself into his soup and fish, and to push on his Barcelona, and to go to the tumple like greased lining, and see Father McGregor and be cad, sir. He was to pipe up and salute that clergyman, and to tell his holiness the whole goat's throat about the 3 shillings in the confusional, and to say how Mrs. Lyons, the cup-tosser, was the infidel who prophesied to pose 3 shillings Peter's pelf off her tocher from Paraguay's, and albs by the yard to Mr. Martin Cleary for Father Matthew, to put up a midnight mask St. Swithins of a thrush day for African man, and to let brown child do, and to leave he alone, and all the nuisances committed by soldas and non-behaviours and misbelovers, for N.D. de l'Ecluse to send more hee-haw hell's flutes my prater again, and I never brought my cads in togs blanket. Fooey. Angly as arrows, but you have it right, my Celtslinger. Nils, Moon, and Canut. Should brothers be for all then? So let yous off be octo, while oil bite the bill, and we'll whang till wobbling befoul you. But me and my trollops will never make a game on the Bibby-Bobby Burns of. Quatch! What hill are you fluking about, ye lame-looking fiats? I'll discipline ye. Will you swear or affirm the date your second sight knew, and recant that all you affirmed to prophetized at first sight for his southerly accent was all paddy flaherty? Will ye? Aye or nay? I say aye. I affirmly swear to it, that it ruly and coolly booly hooly was with my holy Hadgianus lips continuously poised upon the rubricated annuals of St. Ulster. That's very good of ye, H.C.E. Maybe you wouldn't mind telling us, my Labrose lad, how very much bright cabbage or paper-ming comforts do you draw for all your swearing, the Spanglers, kiddie? Prutha, there you have me. Very nothing, oh potatoes, I call it, for I might as well tell you's S. Excelsi, and I am not swallowing my air, the golden bridge's truth. It amounts to nada in pounds or pence, not a glass of luchan, nor as much as the cost price of a Highland man's trouser tree, or the 3 crowns round your drap hole. Isn't it dram disgusting for the whole dumb plodding thing? Come now, Johnny, we weren't born yesterday. Pro tanto quid retribuamus. I ask you to say on your Scotty pigtail you were promised fines times with some stagger juice or dead horse on strip or in larges at the Raven and Sugarloaf, either Jones's Lame or James's Gate, anyhow. Bushmiller, do you think for a moment? Yes, by the way, how very necessarily true. Give me fair play. When? At the Dove and Raven Tavern, no, to wit your wizened. Water, dirty water, up Jubilee sod, beat Pete we treat. What harm wants but demands it? How would you like to hear your right name now, Gazi Power, my tristy minstrel, if you're not frightened of frank comment? Not a frightened of frank anybody's gas power, or ill-conditioned ulcers neither. Your uncles, your gullet. Will you repeat that to me outside, Lenconmons? After you've shouted a few, I will when it suits me, Hulsla. Good. We make fight 3-1, ready? But no from example, Emenia Raffaru. What do you have? What mean you, August one? Fair play for Finnegans. I will have my humours. Sure you would not do the cowardly thing and maul me roon. Tell Queen's Road I am sailing. Farewell, but whenever. Bye. If I choose to put a bullet like you through the grill for heckling, what business is that of yours, you bullock? I don't know, sir. Don't ask me, Your Honour. Gently, gently, Northern Ire. Love that red hand. Let me once more. There are sordidly tales within tales. You clearly understand that. Now, my other point. Did you know, whether by melanodactylism or purely libationally, that one of these two Crimeans with the fender, the taller man, was accused of a certain offence, or of a choice of two serious charges, as skirts were divided on the subject, if you like it better that way? You did, you rogue, you? You hear things. Besides, and serially now, bushes have eyes, don't forget. Ha! Which moral turpitude would you select of the two for choice, if you had your way? Playing bull before she-bears, or the hind legs off a clothes horse? Did any orange peelers or green goaters appear periodically up your sylvan family tree? Buggered if I know. It all depends on how much family silver you want for an ass and pair. Ha! What do you mean, sir, behind your hat? You don't have to do that, you know, snapograph. Nothing, sir. Only a bone moving into place. Bloodograph. Ha ha! What? Are you to have all the pleasure quizzing on me? I didn't say it aloud, sir. I have something inside of me, talking to myself. You're a nice third-degree witness, Faith. But this is no laughing matter. Do you think we are tone-deafs in our noses to boot? Can you not distinguish the sense prain from the sound bray? You have homosexual catheus of empathy between narcissism of the expert and steatopigic invertedness. Get yourself psychoanalyzed. Oh, begor! I want no expert nurse's sympathy from yours Bruins quadroons, and I can soco on a loose myself any time I want, the fog folly of all, without your interferences or any other pigeon stealer. Sample, sample. Have you ever reflected, reportable, that the evil, what though it was willed, might nevertheless lead somehow unto good toward the generality? Apropos of haster meets waster, and talking of plebiscites by a show of hands, whether declaratory or effective, in all seriousness, has it become to dawn in you yet that the deponent, the man from St. Ives, may have been, one is reluctant to use the passive voice, may be been as much sinned against as sinning? For if we look at it verbally, perhaps there is no true noun in active nature where every bally being, please read this motto, is becoming in its own town eyeballs. Now the long form and the strong form and reform all together. Hotchkiss culters ever ready, one brother to never reach it. Well over countless hands, seer of many winners and losers, groomed by St. Sampson and Son, bred by Delilahs, will stand at bay, Dublin, from noon till dawn, and White's inversion, and at Miss or Mrs. McManagan's yard. Perhaps you can explain, Sago Bean, the mod needs a rebus. Pro general continuation, and in particular explication to your singular interrogation, our asseveralation. Lady gent, pals will smile, but me and Frisky Shorty, my inmate friend, as is uncommon struck on poplar poetry, and a few free besides round at West Pauper Bosket, was glad to be back again with the chaps and just arguing friendly-like at the Doddercan-Ease house, having a wee chatty with our hosty and his comfy estably over the old Middlesex party and his moral turps, meaning flu, pox and mizzles, grip, gripe, gleet and sprue, caries, rabies, numps and dumps. What me and Frisky and our consensus and the whole double gig screw of subscribers, not to say the Burman, having successfully concluded our tour of Bible, wants to know is this a here. Supposing, for an ethical fix, him, which the findings showed, to have taken his H.C.E license before the Norsex Divisional, respectively, as regards them male privates, and or concomitantly, with all common or neuter respects to them public excess females, whereas, albeit really sweet fillies, as was very properly held by the Metropolitan, in connection with this regrettable nuisance, touching arbitrary conduct, being in strict contravention of schedule in Board of Forests and Works bylaws regulationing Sparkers and Suckers amusement section of our beloved Natur Park, in pursuance of which police agents, me and Shorty, have approached a reverend gentleman of the name of Mr. Coppinger, with reference to a piece of fire fittings, as was most obliging upon my Sam in this matter of his explanations, affirmative, negative, and limitative, given to me and Shorty, touching what the good book says of two old lazy men concerning the merits of early bisexualism, besides him citing from a proved lectionary example given by a valued friend of the name of Mr. J.P. Cockshot, reticent of England, as owns a pretty maisonette, quis ut deus, fronting on to the Sussex Bluffs, as was telling us categoric how Mr. Cockshot, as he had his assignation with, present holder by deed poll and indenture of the swearing belt, he tells him, hypothetic, the Reverend Mr. Coppinger, he reckons himself disjunctively with his windward eye up to 12 miles of cuneiform school of herring, passing themselves supernatantly by the bloaternays from 12, and them may riding him by the silent hour. Butting, charging, bracing, backing, springing, shrinking, swaying, darting, shooting, bucking, and sprinkling their dosses so to shock with the twings of their tails. And Reverend, he says, somewhat problematical by yon socialist son got me, but them herrings was as gladful as Wissexy kippers could be, considering flipping their little Coppinger's pottom, the frish little flirties, the dirty little gilly brighteners, pickle their spratties, the little smolty gallicers, and Reverend, says he, more asserted of, svelte misuse, says he, letting all fact be the extent of their supper fishes, lammy the curves of their scaligerants, and pesque the ever-urged flosity of their pectoralium, them little salty populators, says he, most apodictic, as sure as my Briam eggs is on cockshot under noose, all them little up-and-down dippies, they was all of a libidous pickpock party and raid on a rigolo finsky doodah in testimonials to their early bisexualism. Such, he says, is how the Reverend Coppinger, he visualizes the hidebound homilies of Creed Crux epics. Watch yourself delicately every morning in your brack solid toilet. The use of cold water, testificates Dr. Rotty, may be warmly recommended for the subjugation of congenitals loosed. Tall all schools. Tall hell and Barbados we ye in your Aryan copulation, Pelagiarist, remonstrant Montgomeryite, short lives to you relatives, yar absexed so yar, with macroglosia and microcephalix. Wait now, Lakeslip, I sent egoarchicism. I will take you to task. I don't follow you that far in your otherwise accurate account. Was it Aesox Lucius or Salmo Ferax? You are taxing us into the driven future, are you not, with this rotty-made fishery? Lalia, Lalia, Lilia, Lulia, and lively, lovely Lola Montez. Gobbernator. That, they say, is a Fenian on the secret, named Parasol Angrily, spawning over and fry like a merry monarch, all a many go round his 7 parish churches, and peopling the ribald baronies with Dans, Ogs, and Connells. Lift it now, husty, humps your mark, for a Runnymede landing, a dundering vesh magnam carpam, as hit needs do. There's an old psalm-sobbing lack salmon of fogey-born here in Plunderhouse, who went floundering with his boatloads of sperm and spunk about, leaping freck after every long Thom and wet Issy between Hoath and Humbermouth, our human conger eel. Help! I can see him in the fish now. Up we your whippy. Hold that lad, play him mark, and then bullhead. Pull you, sir. Olive Quill does it, long eel of Malin. He'll cry before he's flayed, and his tear make New Island. Did it rise? Way, Longfush. The great fin make humule. 3/3 o'er the wild. Manu where? He missed her mouth and stood in to be Romunculus Remus plying the rape, so as now any bompriss is bound to get up her if he pull her leg and bunk on her butt. No, he skid like a skate and birthed on her burney, and never a fear but they'll land him yet, slithery scales on Liffey bank, times and times and half a time with a pillow of sand to polster him. Do you say they will? I bet you they will. Among the shivering sedges so, weedy waving, or tulip beds of rush below, where you take your mugs to wash after dark, to my lee, to me lout Tommy lad, besides the bubbly waters of, bubbly waters of, right. Grenadiers, and tell me now, were these anglers or angelers coexistent and compresent with or without their tertium quid? 3 in 1, 1 and 3, Shem and Shawn, and the shame that sunders 'em, wisdom's son, folly's brother. God bless your ginger wiggle-waggle. That's 3 slots and no burners. You're forgetting the ginny joes for the fay boys. What? Walker John Referent? Play us your patmost, and unpack your ups. Knave Cruachan. Woe and woe, says Wardeb daily. Woman will water the wild world over, and the maid of the folly will go where glory. Sure, I thought it was lacking in the trefoil of the furry glands with 2 stripping bear maids, still a Underwood, and Muff McGarry he was, hand to dagger that time, and their mother, a Rawny Putzfraus, I was given to understand, with superfluvious hairs, begum. There was that one that was always mad gone on him, her first king of clothes, and the most broad-cussed man in Cork on Sharon, County Roscarman. Sure, she was near drowned in pondous cold streams of admiration for herself, as bad as my Tarpian cousin, Vesta Tully, making faces at her back-spilled likeness in the brook after, and cooling herself in the element, she pleasing it, she praising it, with salices and vaid of ales, all tossed as she was, the play-actrix, Loch Sheeling's love. Oh, add Sheel some bride little, all of her own, nurses are as the daughters of inversion, Cecilas through their laughing classes, become pooler mates in later life. It seems to same with his capellas, ice, go tell us, a ticky for thy tots. Listenest, me mearest, they were harrowed, those Finweeds. Come, rest in his bosom. So sorry you lost him, poor lamb. Of course I know you are a very wicked girl to go in the dream place, and at that time of the dream, and it was a very wrong thing to do, even under the dark flush of night, dare all grand passia. He's gone on his bombashore, through geesing and so pleasing at stripteasy up the stairs. The boys on the corner were talking too, and your sorrowful miseries first come on you. Still to forgive it, divine my little whiffy, and everybody knows you do look lovely in your invincibles, Eulogia, a perfect apposition with the cold cream, assoluta, from Boileau's, I always use in the wards after I am burned a rich egg and derive the greatest benefit, sign of the cause. My, you do, simply adorable. Could I but pass my hands through thine hair, so vicky very tiny. Oh, Francis, say how d'ye do, Dotty? Chic hands, the way they curve there under new charmine cuffs. I am more divine like that when I've 2 of everything up to boy-proof nicks. Winning in a way, only my arms are whiter, dear. Blanchemain, idler, fair hair, frail ones. Listen, me sweetie. Oh, be joyful. Mirror do justice, taper of ivory, heart of the convent, hoops of gold. My veil will save it undying from his eternal fire. It's meanly us too, Mimi idol. Of course, it was downright very wicked of him, really meeting me disguised Bartolomeo, perfectly appealing DV with my lovebirds, my Columbinas. Their sensitives shrinked, even Netta and Linda, our see-you-tighties, and they've sinned some Tim Tankus. My rillies were Liebenows, my aft-sense ember. How me adores each other simply, Monish Chabot, my reine belle, in his storm collar, as I leaned yestreen from his muskish labs. Even my little Pom got excited when I turned his head on his same manly bust and kissed him more. Only he might speak to a person, Lord so precious, taking up my worth still wrong. May I introduce? This is my futuress, lips and looks thou last. Still me with you, you poor child. We'll make it up with Mother Conception, and a glorious lie between us, sweetness, so as not a novene in all the convent Lorettos, not my littlest one of all, for mercy's sake, need ever know what passed our lips saw. Yes, sir, we will. Clo the wind, fee o fi, covey us nice, banch the dread. A little looking, lo him lovely. Make me feel good in the moontime. It will all take bloss as arranged at St. Audien's rose and chocolate chapelry, with my diamonds blick feast after, at Minna owned hus, for all the cat club to go crazy, and Father Blasius Mindelsin will be beminding hand. Kyriel elation, crystal elation, Kyriel elation, elation immense. Sing to us, sing to us, sing to us, amen. So, me nearest languished hister, be free to me. I'm fading, and listen you beauty, Esther. I'll be clue to who knows you, pray Magda Mark, with Luce and Joan, while I lie with warm lisp on the tolka. I'm fey, Eusapia, fela tute. Languishing hysteria, the clue hysterique. How is this at all? Is dad's the thing in such, or are tits the that? Here we hear her first pose proem of Suora unto Suora. Alicious, twin streams, twine strains, through alluring glass, or alas in jumbo land. Ding dong, where's your pal in silks, luster? Think of a maiden, presentation. Double her, annuptiation. Take your first thoughts away from her, immaculation. Knock, and it shall appall unto you. Who shone yet shimmers will be air shining. Clues her voile, her hild, her hindly, after lyric and thermodious soft aglo-iris of the valse. This young bar lady, what, euphemiously? Is she having an ambidual act herself in apparition with herself as Consuelas de Sonia's maid? Dang, and tetralogio. This and that and these and those. You're crackling out of your turn, my monster firefly, like always. And two aren and Longhorns Connacht. Stay off, my heir. You've grabbed the capital, and you've had the Lionshire since 1542, but there's all the difference in Ireland between your borderation, my chatty cove, and me. The Leinstrel boy to the wall is gone, and there's more in a storeen for Mon and Con, with the tykes named Moke. Doggy men's nimmer win. You last led the first when we last, but we'll first trump your last with the lasting. Jump the rail chairs or take them as you please, but, and, sir, my questions first, Foxy Jack. You've as much scullabogue cheek on you now as would boil a cauldron of kale brose. Did the market missioners, Hayden Wombwell, when given the raspberry, find more than 16% of chalk in the purity, promptitude, and perfection flower of this raw materialist, and less than a 7th pro mile in his meal? We bright young chaps of the brand new brain trust are briefed here, and with maternal sanction, compellibly empanelled at quarter sessions, under the 6 disqualifications for the uniformication of young persons, nodding neutrals, removal act, by committal man number under 15, to know had the peeress of generals, who have been getting nose money cheap and stirring up the public opinion about private balls with their legs, Mrs. Murtha and Mary, the 2 Reapers' assistants, had they their service books in order, and duly signed J.H. North and Company when discharged from their last situations? Will ye up and tell the board in the interim how, in the name of the 3 tailors on Tooley Street, did Obie Jorumson, or Mock McManich, ex of Button Hocksets, violating the bushel standard, come into awful position of the barrel of belly-wash? And why, is it any harm to ask, was this hackney man in the coombe, a paper sailor with a white look to him, Fox Fitzwarson, collected from Man of Isle, carrying his ark of egg-shaped fuselage and made in Fredborg into the Bulgin across his back, when he might have been sitting on his Jonas inside like a glass door cabman? Where were the doughboys? 3 by nombres, 1 in seal, Cave Hill Xers or Hearts of Steel, Hanson, Morfid and Odia, VD, with their Glenageries directing their steps according to the RUC's liaison officer, with their trench ulcers open and their hands in their pockets contrary to military rules when confronted with his life-size obstruction? When did he live off rooking the poor-o? And how did start puff-faffing at his Patterson and Hellicots? Is it a factual fact, proved up to the scab's teeth's hilt, that this fancy dress Nordic in shaved lamb breeches, child's kilts, bibby buntings and Wellingtons, with club torque and headdress, freeholder of the Ba Ptolemy, is co-owner of a Hengster's Circus near North Great Denmark Street? Incidentally, it's the most enjoyable show going the province, and I'm taking the youngsters there Saturday first when it's half-price Naturals Night to see the fallen sickeners aping the Buckley backers and the blind to 2 worlds taking off the Deafy-Down dummies. And the Sham-Shem showman has been complaining to the police barracks and applying for an order of certiorari and crying out something vile about him being molested after him having triplets by offers of vacancies from females in this city, neighing after the man and his outstanding attraction ever since they seen his X-ray picture turned out in wealthy red in the Sabbath sheets. Was it him that suborned that Surdu Mutual son of his, a literary distributor in St. Patrick's Lavatory, to turn a Roman and leave the chair and go out in his bare balbriggans the sweep and buy the usual jar of porter at the Morgan Cruces and set it down before the wife with her fireman's helmet on her, bidding her mind the hoose, the strumpet, while him and his Logan loves were rampaging the roads in all their panoply, under the noses of the Heliopolitan Constabulary? Can you beat it? Prepare the way. Where's that gendarme auxiliar, aeronautic sapertillery that reported on the whole hoodlum, relying on his Morser's wordy book and the trunchine up his tail? Roof Sekesine van der Deckel, and get her story from him. Recall Sickerson, the Lizzie boy. Sekersen Magnon of Erk. Sackerson, Hookup. De Shirker for Van floats he Verdens market. High liquor made lost torpedo hunt her orchid. Hunt her orchid? Gobbin, he found it on her right enough. With the shoes upon his shoulders, 'twas most trying to behold us when he upped their frolital pleats with our warning. A disgrace to the homely Protestant religion, bloody old pre-Adamite with his 2-handled umbrella. Trust me to spy on me own spew. Wild pargy! And this is your deified city, Norganson? And it's we's to pray for big messers' conversions? Call Kitty the Beads, the mandam of Tipnock Castle. Let succubus come. The improvable his wealth made possible. He's cooking Hager that rost her prayer to him upon the top of the stairs. She's deep, that one. A fatter noiser for his tuckish amenities. Our former who erred in having, down to give us this dagger darling breed. And then the confiseur for the boob's indulgence, as sanctioned for his salmon bog by the councillors on Trent. Pave Panem at his gaiter's bronze, number half dreads log lotty. Master's gun he wars the beds. I massaged his deltoid saucepander muscles on the kitchen table, with my ironing duct through his roll pins of Gansey fet, do-do-do-do-de-do, till he was brazing red in the toast face, with the lovin' soft eyeballs, and his kiddledrum steaming and rattling like the roast is in my mock-a-mill. I ought to have scorched his abe-arms brack for him, for the loaf of Obadiah take your pastry art's nose out of me flour bucket. Of the stranger seen you giving squeezers to me skillet, as cream of the harp, thou reignest all home. His lapper and livers was glue-glued as he sizzled there watching me Lothric's picture by Wexford Atelier as Catty and Lana, the refined soubrette, with my bust a la brooch and the padbon under my matelot, showing my jiggety sleeves and all my new too-long Toulouses. Whisk, there's me shims, and here's me hams, and this is me jupettes, gauze be the metre. Whisk, what's this? Whisk and that. He never cotched finer, ballet me, at Romeo lo Frolini's flea pantomime out of Griddle the Sink, or Shoesies with her soles up, or La Sozarelli, the pussy boots, when I started to hob-mop ladle-like, highty-tighty, to kick the time off the cluck, cluck, luck, luck, quam, quam, cam, cam, pot-a-pot, pan-a-pan, kick-a-kick-cack. Here, whorehounds, shake up Fortna. Fuddling fun for Fullacan's sake. All halt. Sponsor programme and close down. That's enough, General, of finicking about Finnegan and fiddling with his paddles. A final ballot, Governor, to remove all doubt. By Sylph and Salamander and all the trolls and tritons, I mean to top her drive and to tip the tap of this at last. His thoughts that would be words, his livings that have been deeds, and will too, by the holy child of Cool, prima patriarch of the H.C.E, if I have at first to down every mask in Transnania from Terry's hole to Stutterer's corner, to find that yoke off his letter, this Yokan his docket. Past the justers of the king, the Kovner Journal, and the Erenach's Custos himself, no less, the Meg of Megs, with the Carson old gang. Off with your Persians, search ye the Finn, the cinders under shriving sheet. Fa fe fee fo fum. Ho croak, evildoer, arise, Sir Ghostus. As long as you've lived, there'll be no other. Doff. Amsterdam, sir, to you. Eternus citas. Heil. Here we are again. I am brought up under a camel act of dynasties long out of print, the first of Shittrick Shilkenbeard, or is it Olaf MacCoskell the third? But in Pontifex Maximus, I am known throughout the world, wherever my good All-English's Angles-Laxon is spoken by Sal and Will, from Augustanus to Ergastulus, as this is, whether in Farnham's Rath or Congra's Ridge, or the meadows of Dorkin or monkish Tunsep, by saints and sinners I alike, as a clean living man, and, as a matter of fact, by my half-wife, I think how our public at large appreciates it most highly from me, that I am as clean living as could be, and that my game was a fair average, since I perpetually kept my Ouija wicket up. On my vera wife, I never was, nor can afford to be, guilty of crim creed con of malfeasance trespass against person, with the person of a youthful girl friend, chirped apples, acted by Miss Dash, and with any of my cousins in Kissyloff Slutsgarten or Giglots Hill, when I would touch to her dot and feel most greenily of her unripe ones, as it should prove most anise and far too bahad, needless to say, to my reputation on Babel Malket for daughters in trade being lightly clad. Yet as my acquaintance do me the complaisance of apprising me, I should her have arrested under my dust guise of whippers through tombs and DMPs, lagmen, was she but tinkling of such a thing. And as a mere matter of fact, I tell it myself, how I possess the ripest littlem's waifuki around the globalet's globes, upon which she was romping off on Floss Monday, out of Haram's way, round Skinner's Circus Alley, first with her consolation prize in my serial dreams of fair women, mannequins past, with awards in figure and smile subsection, handicapped by two breasts in opera tops, a remarkable little endowment garment, fastened at various places. What spurt! I keenly love such, particularly while savouring of their flavours at their most perfect best, when served with heliotrope eyelids, as this is, where I do drench my jolly soul on the pure beauty of hers past. She is my best preserved whole wife, so well her as hereafter, in Evans's eye, with incompatibly the smallest shoe number outside Chinatown. They are jolly dainty, steaking luly. May we not recommend them? It was my proof piece from my prentice serving, and alas, our private chaplain of Lambeth and Dolkey, Bishop Regenery, an always sad-faced man in his lute-string pew cape with tabinet band, who has visited our various hard hearts and reins by imposition of fingers, also haddock's thumb, in that upper room can speak loud to you some quite complimentary things about my clean charactering, even when detected in the dark, distressful though such recital prove to me, as this is, when I introduced her, Frankfurter's number eins wide drive here, to our four-post attorneys chantraying on the Castrucci Signor and de Mellos, those whopping old stairs, with sycamore euphonium in either notation, in our altogether cage-house Duckyheim on Goosna Green, that cabin-teeny home sweetened through affection's hard pains. First Mercus, or so they sank it. Dodo, oh clearly, and Gregorio at front, with Johannes far in back. Oh. Gleeglom, there's no sweep places like their sweep nowheres. By whom, as my Kirkfield laters, ye little church ron ye corner, and KK catechism enjoineth in the belief, and, as you all know of a child, dear humans, one of my life's ambitions of my young end from an early PP period, while still to Hedges School, intended for Broadchurch, I, being fully alive to it, was parochially confirmed in Colifat's bed by our bougie beloved curate author. Michael Engels is your man. Let Michael relay Sutton, and tell you people here who have the phony habit, it was remarkable in his clairaudience, as this is, as only our own Michael can, when Reicher out at Superstation, to bring ruptures to our roars, how I am amplified. Himlan Collins, Pim's honorary 4-9-1/2. Sean Shempson say when, Holmes stock unsteaden. Liverpool lawyer hogs 1-4 tops 9. Big butter boost. Sorry. Thank you. That'll be all for today. Call it off. God notch briboily. End of muddy crushment. Appreciate the New York customs. Pyow, tack. Tick tack. Tick tack. A wind above the water falling. Poor cow his duplicator. It's the damp. Calm has entered. Big calm, announcer. It is most ernst to truly a morsome entertainment. Colt's tooth. I will give tansel to it. I protest there is literally not 1 teaspoon spill of evidence at bottom lie to my babad, as you shall see as this is. Cayman Lapsang of first pickings. And I, Contango, can take off my 39 articles of quoting here in Phoenix Park before those in heaven to provost myself, by gramercy of justness, I mean very man and mormon, stiff and staunch forever, and enter under the advices from Messrs. Norris, Southby, Yates, and Weston Inc. to their favoured client, into my pre-Protestant caveat against the publication of libel by any Tixtim Tipsy-Loon or Tom Towley of Kaiser's Lean, a blow-eyed lane joint, wearing low-belt suit with knock-brecky knees and bull-fist rings round him and a false road axe hand. He is convessor to Saunter's Notes Letters and the Post Office Directory in his business. The best begrudged man in Belgradia who doth not be least to our Pavia, to my none such, that highest personage at moments holding down the throne. So to speak of beauty scouts in elegant pursuit of flowers, searchers for tabernacles, and the celluloid art. Happen seen Sorinus believe. The caca cad. He walked by North Strand with his thumb's towel in hand, snake-eye, strangler of suffocated green parrots. I protested that he is by my wipeout. He was leaving out of my double-ins while he was all tippling over my single exits. So was Cashane done for his recent behaviour. Sherlock is lurking for him. All our belt spanners. Get your hair cut. Shame upon Private M. Shame's on his fulsomeness. Seamus on his Atkins scum's lying Sullen for an outcast mastiff littered in blood courish. Aristocrat till hanging tower, stick a javelin through his advoutrid heart. In Staunton, flap my Larrybird, dangle my Highflyer, jiggity-jig my Jack-a-dandelion. Let me never see his wad fez again. and mine it was, Barthol von Honorig. So son of furrows, our spring like his gesture, initiate my cry as ours now, so used then. When to our lot it fell on my poplar sex, my Saxon centenary, when by gate of hell, before his hostel of the Woden man, I hastened to freehold it up to his mam, his maman, majuscules, his Magnus Magerstick, first cities leastways of this Nova Tara, our most noble, when Hrosbucked on his priceless charger, Ferdinand Dalibuster. Ye do not need light ore till Norway, for you fan one or every doorway. With my albums greetings through this whole of my promises, handshaky congratulate them's excellently. Who saw the jackery dares at hand grip of this abreast? Those mackers ginger. Someone we was with us all fours. Adversarian, the spiking divil. First liar in Land's End. Wolf, see you scar gore on that skeep's brow. And those mices, sulken torts. Man sicker at ere I bluff conservative. Shucks! Such rats house a bug's mess so I cannot barely conceive of. Lowest basement in history. Obscenest nonsense. Noxact. Her peeler and paw. The broker heart and sugar. Whole affair is rotten. Muck swinish porcupig's draff. Enoch. Is that you, Whitehead? Have you head noise now? Give us your misbuilt reception, will yous? Pass the fish, for Christ's sake. Old White Oath, he is speaking again. Ope Eustace Tube. Pity poor White Oath. Dear gone mummeries go by. Tell the wild I have lived through 1,000 hells. Pity, please, lady, for poor O.W. in this profundest snobbing I have caught. 9 dirty years mine age, hairs hoar, mummery failand, snowdrift my elpo, deaf as adder. I asked you, dear lady, to judge on my tree by our fruits. I gave you of the tree. I gave 2 smells, 3 eats, my free and ease, my celeberry mates, my happy bosoms, my all falling fruits of my boom. Pity, poor haveth childers everywhere with mother. That was Communicator, a former colonel, a disincarnated spirit called Sebastian, from the Rivera in Januero. He is not all here. May Fern speak shortly with messages from my dead porter. Let us cheer him up a little and make an appointment for a future date. Hello, Communicate. How is the butts? Ever scapistic? He does not believe in our psychos of the real absence, neither miracle wheat nor soul surgery of P.P. Quemby. He has had some indigestings, poor thing, for quite a little while, confused by his tongue of bauble. Away with him, poor Felix Cullipert. Ring his mind, ye staples, bonds, in my owl reekeries ballyhot, and in my crumlin and in arrondissements and stremis. Saxeliteri, bam! I deplore over him ruly, mon grief, o horn, yes-termed with the nobilities, to die bronchitic in Acre's house. So enjoying of old thick wiles, in hot white toff's height of our formed reflections, with stock of eisen all his prop, so Buckley hosiered from the royal leg, and his puertos magnum, he would puff out a dimple buck. And the how he would husband her that very carefully, his cigar divan. He would redden her with his vestas, but 'tis not. With us his nephos and his neberls, messed, incensed, and befogged by him and his smoke thereof. But he shall have his glad stein of our sober beer best in Oscar's Hall's wine tavern. Buen retiro. The boy's voice is still flautish, and his mouth still wears that soldier's scarlet, though the flaxafloids are peppered with salsadine. It is by cause of what he was ascend into his prisons on account of. I wit it well, hence his depraised words. Some day I may tell of his second story. Mood, it looks like someone other bearing my burdens. I cannot let it. Cain's not. Well, ye men, I have bared my whole past, I flatter myself, on both sides. Give me even 2 months by lax law in 2nd Division, and my first broadclothish business will be to protest to recorder at Thing of all Things, or Court of Skivinnies, with merchants grey, ancient and credible, the robbable Barentone, Jonah Whalley, determined Cada or Cucumber upright, my jurats, if it does not occur again. O Raimus, Arfacher, wild heart in homeland, Harrods be the non, mine kinder come, mine voll be won. There is nothing like loiter. Oh, she, and nasty men's in glads houses, they shall not peg out stones. The elephant's house is his castle. I am here to tell you, indeed to goodness, that all be I discountenanced, be all persuasions, in renunciation of pomps of heretofore, with a wax too held in hand, I am talked for to do dope me of her Mrs. Prinks, and by virtue of those filtered ovoknas, presently, like brown embracing Christina Anya after the Irishers, to convert me into a Celt. But first I must proxy baptize my old anti-naughties, when, as Sigismund Stolterforth, with Rabin Rob Roost for my auspicer, and Leacherotti for my life arst, and Lawrence Pathorn, Aaron till victory, when I will westernize those poor sun-uppers and outbrighten their land's eng. A man should stump up, and I will pay my pretty decent trade price for my glucose, peebles, were it even, as this is, the legal eric for infelicitous conduct. Here, in clothes, place find my pocket anchor, check, and as a matter of fact, I undertake to discontinue entirely all practices, and I deny whole swiping in toto at my own request, in all stoutness to have confermentated and confoderated and agreed in times pre-bellic, when here were waders for the train spoke, as it is now not gently laid to me, with a friend from mine, Mr. Billups Pullater, my quarter-brother, who sometimes he is doing my locum for me on a grub-stick, and whom I have cleaped constituent, for so it was felt by me, at goodbye coot-coops by use you capture, a mouthless niggeress, Blanchette Brewster from Chernajamja, Blowland via Brigstow, or to ill sell my fourth part in her, which, although allowed of in Deuteronomy as in several places of Scripture, copyright, and excluded books, they should quite rightly forbanned be, would seem excessively harrowing to my feelings for 2 punts Scotch, 1 pollard, and a crockard or 3 pipples on the bitch. Thou, Frick's flame, Odin sulphur, who strikest only on the married box, enquick me if so be I did cofituize my lady's maid. In spect of her beavers, she is a womanly and sacred. Such were a frillick for my comic strip, Mons Meg's Monthly, comes out H. Finnegans Wake, to bray at by clown sillies in Donkeybrook Fair. It would lack in Hodders and Cockers arithmetic. The unpardonable preemption of all of her of Yawn by Juno Moneta. If she Irish Marion de Heresian has been disposed of for her consideration, I, Redwidge Salvatorius, am tradefully uninterested. And if she is still further talc-slopping over her cocoa contours, I, what Mikangars, am strongly of opinion why I should not be. Improbable. I do not credit one word of it from such and suchness mistraversers. Just feathers, nonentities, or to have octroyed to resold or borrow by exchange, same supermetcat means help. Best Brixton High Yellow, no outings, cent for cent on auctions bridge. 'Twere a Hannibal crudelty worth so tantamount to their knacked lives and scatter orgies we devour about in the mighty evil rooms of ancient Carthage. Utterly improperable, not for old Crusoe's or white soul of gold, a pipple on the panis, 2 claps on the cancel, or 3 pox Cassie knocked on the postern. Not for 1 testy ticky culprix coins, or for all ecus in Council House. So hemp me cash. I mean it. My herrings, the surdity of it, I mean to say, for bare ideas it is choo-choo chucklesome. Absurd bargain, mum, will call. 1 line with will ate every day the salmon like a boy in a live. The 2 cherry pickers, with their Catherineness, Lizzie and Lissy Mycock from street flesh shambles, where they moon at orb with Hespermon, and I their coven guardian. I would not know to contact such wretched youngsters in my ways from Haddam, or any Swister seas, or heiresses of Dern, claiming by, through, or under them, house of their Triumphant into mine foyer. Her is one which rassembled to mine enormally. The man what shocked his shanks at Conti Carlo's, he is Duke Collion. Each have a go here, uptaking you our inner sense, but we send you meat sauce infants. Duke Collion, odor, eviling chimes is smutsick revolver blot, but thee hard casted there as pig stains upon Congan shootsmen in Schottenhof, e cassent? Egan Duke Collion, I liked his Gotham cheek. Stutter tub, what a shrubbery trick to play. I will put my oath head under my white pot for ransom of beeves, and will stand me where I stood mine in all free heat between Pelagio's and little Caisteas by Roderick's our most monolith, after my both ears to ear and breeches by Bibles and Manhattan testify to my unclothed virtue by the long stone erection of our all first man here. I should tell you that honestly, on my honour of a near wicket, I always think in a word worths of that prime favourite continental poet, Dante, Gouty, and shopkeeper A.G., whom the generality admires in this that is, and that this is to come. Like as my Palmer's past policy, I have had my best master's lessons, as the public he knows, and do you know, homesters? I honestly think, if I have failed lamentably by accident benefits, though shintoed, spite-fired, perplagued, and cram-creeged, I am doing my dids bits, and have made of my prudentials good. I have been told I own stolen mines, or something of that sort, in the south of Spanian. Ho, 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 ho! Have I said also how I abhor myself vastly, truth to tell, and do repent to my nether heart of sundry clothing? The amusing part is, I will say, hotel men, that since I, over the deep drowna Ahaclea, to seek again landing, shamed in mind, with 3 plunges of my rudder tail, yet not a bottle nymph, vanced imperial standard by weapon right, and platzt mine residence, taking board and burgage under starry misty, and ran and operated my brickstall selection here at Tall Stall, for mean straits male with average female, in commune sockage among strange and enemy, among those plotlets in Poplan's town, alore Fort Dunlip, then on sea, whole of Serbonian bog, now city of magnificent distances, good walled about, with talus and counterscarp and pale of palisades, upon martial siege win, with abattoir to bless, on yon slaughter day of clean tariffs, in that year which I have called Myriabellus, and overdrave these marken. The sword on Wenceslas was mine, and mine the Prussian stock of Albrecht the Bairn, and the patronship of our good kings in turns, T.R.H. Urban first, and Champagne Chollyman, and Hungry the Loved and Hangry the Hathed. Here where my tenure of office and my toils of domestication first began, with weight of woman my scatten sculled, but fluky of the ravens as my sure piloter, famine with English sweat and epidemics, the 2-toothed dragon worms with all sorts serpents hath come politely seceded from this land league of many nations, and open and notorious naughty livers are found not on our rolls. This seat of our city, it is of all sides pleasant, comfortable, and wholesome. If you would traverse hills, they are not far off. If champaign land, it lieth of all parts. If you would be delighted with fresh water, the famous river called of Ptolemy, the Livnia Labia, runneth fast by. If you will take the view of the sea, it is at hand. Give heed. Do Drumcolliher, whatever you do. Visitez Drumcolliher la belle. Besuchen Sie so erst Drumcolliher. Vedi Drumcolliher, et poi munis. Things are not as they were. Let me briefly survey. Proclamation. Hip, peep, pippich. Ubi pop, je piped, ibi pep goes the whistle. Here, Tyburn throttled, mast murmurs march. Where the bus stops, there shop I. Here which ye see, ye rest. On me, your sleeping giant. Esto te sunto. From the hold of my captain altitude, till the mortification that's my fate, the end of aldest Moses is the beginning of all this order, so the last of their hands bailiffs shall the first in our sheriffs be. New highs for all. Redu negru may be black in ton, but under them lintels are staying my horny men, meet each his mancy magged. For peers and gints, quasars and galley liars, frisk letties from the say and stale heady gabblers, gain-gangers and dudder wagoners, pullers off societies and pushers on Rothmere's homes. Obeyance from the townsmen spills felicity by the tune. Our bourse and politico-comedy are in safe with good Jock Shepherd. Our lives are on sure in sorting with Jonathan's wild and great. Being so free, thank you, besters, hattentats have minded. Blow-blazed devil-bobs have gone from the mode, and hair-trig and nicks are quite out of time now. Thuggeries are rear as globbers' maidens, lepers lack, ignorance show beneath suspicion like the bitter halves of Esculapuloids. In midday's mall sight, like Milad discover herself, Milud in her Hyde Park seek min minette. All is waldy bonums. Blow nos aerials we luft to you. Fire bugs, good blazes. Lubbers, keep your powdies drier. Seamen, we seen your skivs and wives. 7 ills, so barely a century punce have I happed. 77s for circumference in captive are your hill prospect. Braid Blackford Rock, the Calton, the Liberton, Craig and Lockhart's, A. Costofino, Arthur's seat. The chort of Nicholas within was my guide, and I raised a dome on the wherewithouts of Mitchin. By awful tors my well-worth buildings sprang sky-spearing spires, cloud-cupoled campaniles. Further this, by finance and imposts I got and grew, and by gross scruple gat I grown outreachesly. Muirage and Lestage were my mains for our Lord's tithing, and my drains for render and prender the doles and the tribute. I was merely out of my mint with all the percussors on my brain cap, till I struck for myself, and muched morely by token. To Sir Her of Gambledon, Roddy Money, to Madame of Pittymount, I lo use. Paybads Floriners moved in Huguenots against us, and I met them, Pepst to Pabst, Bartholomew, Midres, Mark, Onfell, and look, I arose Daniel in Leonden. Bullafests unvid me, Corcuttas gratched. At a bay, I braved Brian Baroomy to berow him against the Loughlands, all her tolky shrieking, Fogabollags, Lusco Boo. If they had ire back of eyeball, they got damage on front tooth. Theirs were revelries at Red Otto's, here was rivalry and redoubt. I vegschicked Duke Wellinghoff to reshuckle Roy Shackleton. Walhalloo, 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 morn in plain. On the laws martial and warshaw did I thole, till leads plumbate, ping on pang, relieved me. I made prayer feast upon our corpulus, and fast broke down a Neederthorpe. I let fair views in on Slobodens, but ranked Rothguards round Rathminders. I bath and baddened on mendicity, and I corrocured off the unoculated. Who can tell their tale, whom I fill ad liptum on the plain of Salisbury, with 300 peepers and twas. For sleeking beauties I spinned their nightingales, to slumbered beast I tummed the thief air. Round the musky moved a murmur, that muses whinninered and bellows zoomed. 10 dulcius tunes like water parted fluted up from the West Enders, while from gorges in the east came the strife of our Rangoon tangs. All in my thick escouter often was thoroughfare, but in my meckling of my borough belvaros was the sight for bed. Tubical roses I raised spudfully from the Murphy plants, Hawkinsonia, and berries from the plethores of the Irish show. I heard my liberty lands making free through their curracooms, my true blues Jerusaleming before Wellington's wall. I rich-mounded the rain lag in my bathtub of roundwood, and conveyed it with cheers and cables, roaring mighty shouts through my longer tubes of elm. Out of fondness for the outer zone, I carried them and curried them in my put-them-down cars to my commandine hotels. I made sprouts spontaneously from Philip's sobriety in the coop that's chained for noon inebriates. When they weaned weary of that bibbing, I made infusion more infused. Sour pacers of the vine-garth obtemperate unto me. When you think me in my coffee cups, look in where would you make a mock of me. As you pay in cabman shelter, tot the ites like you course the peas. Wherefore, watch ye well, for while I uplooked the first of Janus's straight, I down saw the last of Christmas steps. Syndic podestrill, and on the rates, I for indigent and intendente. In forum foster I demonstrated my folks' fiendship. In me pupils felt my birth was no worse than their bright. Suffragetta and conscientia were undecidedly attached to me, but the Moher Macrees and the Anti-Parthenopes, my Schwalbe words, with littered spongelets, set their soaky pokies and botch buns of fume. Fletcher Fleming's Elizabeth, how interquackeringly they rogated me, their golden one, I inhesitant made replique, made amende to Lercia's sponsor, and who in his said, don't you let fly fire till you see the whites of their bunkers' eyes. Mr. answers, bring 'em young, bring 'em young, bring 'em young. In my Bethel of Solomans I accoushed their rotundities, and I turnkeyed most insultantly over rape lutetias in the loch. I gave backs of biscums to the Jacobiters, and pottage bakes to the Isosted. I delivered them with freakandesias by the constant droppings from my smalls instalments, while I tip-for-totaled up their farina days for them on my slataper's slate with my Chandler's chalk. I jaunted on my jingle breath wrapped in neckcloth and sashes, and I beggared about the amney bushes like belly in a bowl. In the humanity of my heart I sent out hayway women to refresh the ball-wearied, and then, doubling megalopolitan politeness, my greatest of these charities devaleurized the base fellows for the curtailment of their lower man. With a slog to square leg, I sent my boundary to Botany Bay, and I ran up 104 of me's, while the Yanks were huckling the Empire. I have been receiving ominous letters, and widely signed petitions full of pieces of pottery about my monumentalness as a thingaballs, and I have been enchanting causeries to the feshest cure boys, so that they are all calling on me for the song of a birch. The more secretly by built, the more openly palastered. Attent, couch here, I have becket my Vanderbilt hutch in sun's mid-naught, and at morning rise was encompassed of mush roofs. Rest and be thankful with license, thanks. I considered the lilies on the veldt, and unto Balkis did I disclose mine glory. And this, missy my daughters, and these man, my son, from my fief of the villa of the Osmanorum to Thorstan's recte Thomas Red, and from Hugginprees to William Inglis his house, that man de Londres, in all their barony of Saltus, bonders and faubourgers, helots and zealots, strutting ogues and swaggering Macs, the Darcy Jameses, the Drury Joneses, red maids and blue cots, in homage all and felony, all who have received tickets, fair home overcrowded, tidy but very little furniture, respectable. Whole family attends daily mass, and is dead sick of bread and butter. Sometime in the militia, mentally strained from reading work on German physics, shares closet with 8 other dwellings more than respectable, getting comfortable parish relief, wage earner freshly shaven from prison, highly respectable, planning new departure in Montgomery cycle finishing. Eldest son will not serve, but peruses big man up in the skies, scraps, Anupanadun lacking back way, quasi-respectable, pays ragman in bones for faded window curtains, staircase continually lit up with guests, particularly respectable, house lost in dirt and blocked with refuse, getting on like Rose Distillery on fire, slovenly wife active with the jug, in business for himself, has a 10th illegitimate coming, partly respectable, following correspondence courses, chucked work over row, both cheeks kissed at levee by late Marquis of Zetland, sharing closet which is profusely written over with 11 other subscribers, once respectable, open hallway pungent of Baltic dishes, bangs kept woman's head against wall, thereby disturbing neighbours. Private chapel occupies return landing. Removal every other quarter day. Case 1 of peculiar hopelessness. Most respectable. Night soil has to be removed through snoring household. Eccentric naval officer not quite steady. Enjoys weekly churchwarden and laugh while reading foreign pictorials on clump stump before door, known as the trap. Widow rheumatic and chars haunted, condemned and execrated, of dubious respectability. Tools too costly pledged or uninsured. Reformed philanthropist, whenever feasible, takes advantage of unfortunates against dilapidating ash pits. Serious student is eating his last dinners. Floor dangerous for unaccompanied old clergyman, thoroughly respectable. Many uncut pious books in evidence. Nearest water tap 200 yards run away. Fowl and bottled gooseberry frequently on table. Man has not had boots off for 12 months. Infant being taught to hammer flat piano, outwardly respectable, sometimes hears from titled connection. 1 foot of dust between banister and cracked wall. Wife cleans stools, eminently respectable. Auto work and regular loafer. Should be operated, would she consent? Deplorable rent in roof. Claret cellar cobwebs since the pontificate of Leo. Wears drill trousers and collects rare Buddhas. Underages very treacly and verminous, have to be separated. Sits up with fever cases for 1 and 3pence. Owns 2 terraces, back-to-back breeze. Respectable in every way. Harmless imbecile, supposingly weak-minded. A sausage every Sunday. Has a staff of 8 servants. Outlook marred by ne'er-do-wells using the laneway. Lie-abed sons go out with sisters immediately after dark. Has never seen the sea. Travels always with her 11 trunks of clothing.